is up, RotoGrinders? Right now, 2 hours nonstop NBA DFS conversation, taking y'all straight up the lock, 7 o'clock on the East Coast. Three-man booth. Big boy slate. Could have been bigger. Both sites decided to cut off the last two games that are 10 o'clock or so on the East Coast. We're down to 8 games, still plenty to play with. Kind of, sort of, somewhat a sprint slate. Last game starts at 8:30 on the East Coast. We got returning champion, Head Chopper. Chopper, welcome back. I know yesterday was so much fun. We're running it back. Sequel's rarely as good as the original, but you know what? Maybe let's change that let's make this one better than yesterday.
Dean, I'm just damn happy we have a third guy in the booth today, so I don't have to go through the whole 2-man grind with you again, man.
You want to do the pull of Tony Snell? You just want to stand in the corner, have no usage? Is that what you're talking about?
I am not opposed. just collecting the paycheck.
Well, we got Kyle Murray coming in. Kyle Murray, are you willing to step up, Kyle? Are you going to be like Russ Westbrook, certainly circa like 2018 or so, in the absence of Harden and Durant? Or do you want to, Chop's giving you the ball? Are you ready to run with it?
I'll give it my best shot. That is for sure.
Chop not getting paid by the word today. Apparently, he's just got a flat fee. I suppose that's how that goes.
Wait. I forgot to ask Kyle something. Now, if I'm not mistaken, isn't Kyle a huge Michigan guy?
That's right. Yep.
So how you feeling, man? How are you feeling?
I'm feeling good. Yeah, we're on a little bit of a cloud 9 high right now. It's still a little bit surreal. I feel like it hasn't totally set in, but yeah, very, very excited. It's been a great year, and it's the first time a Michigan team has won that I've seen since 07 or 06 with the Red Wings, and yeah, it's been a brutal stretch. So yeah, I'm very happy.
Nice.
Who's 07, 06? That's like the Fedorov and like Osgood. Who was playing for the Red Wings?
No, that was like Datsuk and Zetterberg. Fedorov was probably early
before that.
2000. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. All right. Well, shout out. Good for Detroit. Happy for you. Hey, UCF plays Kansas tonight in basketball. I don't watch much college basketball, but should I be excited about that? I saw the line's only like 6.5 or 7.
Nah.
Is that low? Because
you get steamrolled. You'll get steamrolled.
Okay.
I mean, there's no offense. I mean, listen, Dean, we're in the big. You're in the Big 12 now. We're in the Big 12 now.
Yeah.
It is not a cakewalk, my friend. I found that out last night, brother.
What happened last night? The Houston get
Ames, Iowa, and Iowa State. They're solid, and yeah, we got beat. 4-point game, but it is tough, man. So I do agree there. Kansas is a little overrated, but UCF probably doesn't have enough for them tonight. But yeah, man, it's gonna be an interesting. It's the best conference, Dean, for basketball. It is. Big 12 basketball is better. It's like the comparable, the comp to it, but better. It's better than the SEC football. It is a tough, deep conference, man.
Is Wisconsin still playing games like where the first team that scores 40 wins? Is that still happening? That's I know it's not the Big Ten. Well, it's Big Ten, right?
Yeah, that's Big Ten.
Is that still happening? Because it's just unwatchable. The Pacers score that many points in a quarter. It's a whole other conversation. I don't want to derail the show, but is that still a thing with Wisconsin basketball? First to 40 wins?
Kyle's a Big Ten guy. You watch much Wisconsin basketball?
I haven't. I don't think I've watched any more than maybe 20 minutes of college basketball this year.
Yeah, Wisconsin's probably still a little bit defensive, but there's a difference, Dean. I think there's a big difference. I think there's a misconception out there from people like you who say that. There's a difference between like a 54-50 college basketball game where the point is to just grind out the clock and just be like slow paced and all that kind of stuff. And they can't shoot, they can't do, or a different type of defense that where it is going to create a 54-50 game where the defense is so good, the guys are connected on a string together, and it's just tough to get a good shot up. That's actually, I think, is pretty entertaining to watch when it's like that.
All right. Let's talk about tonight's NBA DFS slate. Like we said, 8 games. Lots of news still up in the air. We're not sure about DeAnthony Melton. He may come back with his back. We know Embiid is, of course, out for Philadelphia. So that's opening up some stuff there, especially on FanDuel for the Philly players. Atlanta is one we have to monitor. DeJounte Murray is questionable with his hamstring. They have several potential injuries. Capella's got an Achilles. Good matchup as well. So, yeah, you want to keep an eye on Atlanta. My Heat have already ruled out Kyle Lowry, Caleb Martin. Jimmy Butler's got that toe, so he can't play basketball. The Celtics, no Porzingis. I believe this is the front half of a back-to-back. I have these written down. Yeah, Boston front half, OKC front half. The back half, Sacramento, Detroit. They both played each other last night. And the T-Wolves. T-Wolves are playing the back half of a back-to-back against Minnesota. Mike Conley's ruled out. Rudy Gobert's got a hip. And they had issues getting into Boston, which may have definitely derailed their schedule, just kind of getting to Boston with the weather. That could be a problem. I'm not really sure how that's going to affect the team. Maybe they'll rest Gobert for that reason. Who knows? Stay tuned. But in theory, a fun basketball game, Minnesota and Boston on paper. Some might argue potentially a finals preview. I don't know. Look at the standings. I guess you could argue that. Kyle, give me what else are we monitoring? Any thoughts on that? Big picture wise when it comes to this 8 game, we're going to break it down game by game in just a second. But is there anything else worth pointing out? What other news is relevant? Zion's questionable too.
Yeah. Zion was the big one. Porzingis we already got, so I would say that was probably those were the 2 big names that we were still waiting on. Obviously, you mentioned a couple of the big names, Halliburton and Embiid out. They've obviously announced a couple days early, so we've known that news. Melton is another piece of small news. Capella questionable with an Achilles injury, so he's, I guess, a name worth monitoring. And then you mentioned Gobert, so I think that's it. I think the only real big name that I think was Zion. So I think we're gonna have that figured out pretty soon here.
Yeah, we have if then set up for Atlanta, and Atlanta is the one team that could really, really open up if both DeJounte Murray and Capella sit. Then like Trae Young would be a positive value, Jalen Johnson a positive value, Bogdanovich, Okongwu would look fantastic. Presuming he would jump in the starting lineup, we would have him projected for 32 minutes if Capella goes away. Hopefully we get that news, or if we don't get that news, Crunch Time will get the news. They come in around 6:15 or so. You got Kevin Roth, Taylor Smith, and Keith Eyster. Chop, what do you want to add as far as the slate big picture? Your thoughts? Halliburton's obviously not around anymore for Indiana. That matchup versus Washington looks spectacular. The sites were proactive as far as bumping up TJ McConnell. Currently not projected to start for what it's worth, but he certainly can come off the bench and play about 30 minutes or so. It's interesting he's not like landing in optimals that I was running, but again, the price is pretty high, but I think he's an interesting play. But guys like Nembhard, Neesmith, value plays, Jalen Smith, he gets the run. They look pretty good here versus the Wizards. Chop, what do you got? Anything you want to add before we dive into the old game-by-game deal?
I would just say, the way I have them highlighted right now for what is actually confirmed, more or less, to be out, high impact. High impact is Embiid, Halliburton, Cunningham, and Porzingis. Those are high impact. Not as high, but still very relevant. Pirtle, Chris Paul, Mike Conley, PJ Washington, Horton Tucker, and Kyle Lowry. And then far lesser than that, but still somewhat relevant in the big picture of the slate. Butler, Hayward, Zach Collins, Eason, and Stewart. Some of those guys have been out for a while. That's why they're less impactful because of some of the salaries adjusted. But there's some high impact guys here that are missing tonight. Yeah, this should be a wide open slate.
We just got some big news on the college football front. Saban to retire. I gotta jump into that shot. Yeah.
Whoa.
Oh yeah, I see that now.
Wow.
Oh wow. Now, is that a real retirement, or is that like
that's real?
One of those. He's a boxer, and he's going to come back in a couple of years. You think he's done? He's done. That's it.
I think he's done. Right? Like, there's no. Where else would you go? You've tried the NFL. It wasn't for you. There's no program you could go to that's bigger than Alabama. That's got to be done. I mean, I'm sitting here honestly, Dean. These last few days, I've been keeping track of the transfer portal and commitments and all that. And man, yeah, I'd be out of that game too if I was a coach. Like, guys are committing to your university, and then 24 hours later they decommit because they're just trying to drive up their price tag in NIL and go somewhere else. And that was their whole point. Like, it's happening over and over. I'd be retiring too, man. It's a Wild West out there, but that sounds about like a real retirement. That doesn't sound like anything fake or anything like that.
He's 72. Yeah, smell the roses. He's got a bunch of money. He can just chill, and I don't know if he has whatever family, grandkids, whatever he's doing. But yeah, it seems like you said.
Now is it a coincidence that on the same day Pete Carroll
also 72 years old,
gets booted now? Either I don't know. Yeah, who knows, man.
Well, Carroll, they said they might move him to the front office, which I don't. Was
maybe
that his
maybe they're moving him to front office to open up some room for Saban. I don't know, Dean. I don't know. Who knows?
Maybe Pete Carroll and Nick Saban are going to have like a reality show, and they're going to like live together. Would you watch that?
No.
Maybe that's what's happening. It's like a reboot of like The Odd Couple or something. I don't know. Many years. It's going to be coming to Netflix soon. Also coming to Netflix for real. This is not a chop back, but like what they're following 5 NBA players. They're doing like that documentary style. I think they did for golf. I didn't watch. I'm not a golf guy. I'm told it was very good. But Sabonis, Tatum, LeBron, a couple other players that were all good. Edwards. Yeah, that's a good one as well. And there's a fifth person too.
Tatum,
that's
I think.
Yeah, for sure. That's gonna be something that I'm gonna want to watch. All right, let's dive in again. 8-gamer. Amongst those 8 games, 4 of them, half the slate starts at 7:00. Starts at the bell. And again, they're cutting off the last several games, so we got to get to it right away. First game, Sacramento, the Kings. The Kings at the Hornets. They're running it back. At least the Kings are. They were playing last night. 230.5 is the total. They are currently 8-point favorites against the Hornets. The Hornets are, they're beat up. Mark Williams, shout out to the Hornets. They finally ruled them out. No more doubtful stuff. Gordon Hayward, LaMelo, P.J. Washington, basically any of their starters coming into the season with the exception of Terry Rozier is out. And Cody Martin, he's got a groin, so he's questionable. We're expecting him to start. If he goes, the Kings, nothing. They're clean. They are good to go. They have the full roster to play with. Kyle, your thoughts as far as the Kings and the Hornets? I think Rozier looks awesome, right? He's been great of late, and he has to do everything because him and Bridges, right, are basically doing everything for the Hornets these days. Not a great team, but good matchup here versus the Kings. I like Rozier. I think it's an interesting conversation as far as him versus the other top flight point guards. Where do you have him in comparison to guys like SGA, guys like Fox on the other side of this game, guys like Trae Young? Well, Trae Young, if Murray's rolled out, would just really jump off the page. But as of right now, Rozier and the Hornets, what is your read?
Yeah, I mean, Rozier sticks out. That the price is just a little bit too cheap, and the minutes look really good. I think we have for like 38 minutes. Kings are coming off of a game where they ended up winning by 21 against the Pistons, but at one point they were down 20 in the first half. So just a weird game. Just kind of shows that the Kings, you can get points on them. I will say this game has been kind of weird. It opened up at 235 last night, and I thought that seemed pretty low, and it's actually only gone down. I think it was at 230 at one point. So it's kind of a weird game based on the trends of the total. But yeah, Rozier, I think he makes a lot of sense here. I will say there are other options in this range. You have Maxey in that range. You have Trae Young, who's a little bit more of a spend up there at the guard position. But then there's players in the same sort of price range at other positions as well that would make sense as pivots. I just think it's kind of a sort of a strange spot for Rozier to get chalky, I guess. It just seems sort of odd that, I know the game script could be pretty good where the game environment could be good, but we have some other really good games where, the Pacers and the Wizards, the 76ers Hawks game, that game projects really well. So I will say that ownership feels a little strange on Rozier. I do think he grades out as a strong play, but I think that for me, there's going to be some other options that I look at. Guys like Trae Young, especially if, we get late news on DeJounte Murray, or maybe, I guess it's 7:30 lock for that game. So we'll probably have it, or if Murray plays, I think Young will be pretty low owned. So it's a spot where you could easily make some pivots there. So I think Rozier makes sense for cash, but I think in tournaments, I'll probably be a little bit underweight on him just because of the quality of pivots that you have there. You can even pivot to Miles Bridges on the same team to get contrarian there as well. I think I would prefer Rozier over Bridges, but that is definitely an option. So Rozier, I think he's more than fine for cash and I guess like single entry type builds, but for tournaments, I think I'm probably going to be underweight there on Rozier.
Last 3 games for Bridges, 40 minutes, 41 minutes, 40 minutes. They're not messing around. They really don't have anybody else. 36, 37 the previous 2 before that. I think we're projecting for like 37, 38, but certainly he can get to 40 in theory. 29% ownership. You kind of alluded to there, Kyle. 29% is the number currently on DK. Just got a refresh about 15 minutes ago. So if you guys are on Lineup HQ, feel free to give that a refresh, the newest batch of ownership. Herder, the most popular player on DK for the Kings. He jumped back in the starting lineup last night and was pretty terrible. He was assisted by his assists and his rebounds, which I think he got 5 of each, but his shooting was like 1 of 11 or so, a bit of a disaster. But he is kind of cheap, and we're giving him 26 minutes, and he's fine. But we've seen him be more bad than good. But the matchup, of course, against Charlotte's perfectly fine. Chop, jump in here. Hornets, Kings. What are our thoughts?
Yeah, I'm kind of with Kyle there. It's Rozier is jumping. He's jumping in the optos, man. He's got a huge projection there, and the price tag's not great, but it's not. It's a lot worse on FanDuel than it is on DraftKings. So he's jumping off. And the ownership kind of reflects that also, and he's like basically the big one in this game that I'd be thinking about. Kevin Herter in some we've got him projected up here at RG pretty hefty to where he's going to pop in some optimals, but not as many.
By the way, I don't want to cut you off, but Cody Martin was just ruled out. So that's 30 minutes going away for Charlotte. PJ, I think, was doubtful. He's officially out now.
Who?
Yeah,
Cody or Caleb?
Well, all the Martins. Anybody?
Really?
Tonight. Yeah. No, Martin Lawrence not playing tonight.
You didn't see? I don't see Cody Martin. Huh.
Yeah, it just happened like a minute ago or so.
Yeah, there
on
it is.
Twitter.
All right.
So that's 30 minutes going away for Charlotte. They are really, really thin. Do we have an if then for?
All right, that opens it up. That'll open it up right there.
But is it going to be like JT Thor and nonsense like that we don't really care about?
I mean, it doesn't now. Now you can definitely securely push the lock button on a Terry Rozier type guy. Now nothing's going to hold him back, really.
Well, lock button?
Yeah, he was already you already had to make a decision on him. Do you want to go with the 30%? Do you want to go overweight, or do you want to just fade him, go underweight? Well, now I think it's a lot easier to go overweight on Terry Rozier. That's a big projection from everybody. We're all giving him a big projection at $8,500. Now you get even more time and more things on the court to do. So, yeah, Terry Rozier is kind of a lock for me right now. And the rest of
these minutes go? Is it Nick Smith? Is it Ish Smith? Is it Thor? Is it McGowan's? Or just each one of those guys? It's a bump of 5 or so.
Yeah, I think the biggest benefit minutes wise is probably gonna be Nick Smith if I had to guess. I think Thor will definitely pick up some more minutes as well. So those two I would say probably the biggest beneficiaries minutes wise. But I think that a sneaky sort of boost here could be to Brandon Miller here, who's sort of kind of tapered off in terms of his minutes ceiling. He went on a stretch of 2 or 3 weeks where he was popping off for 35, 36 minutes here and there during some games, but that sort of tapered off, and he's kind of getting the rookie treatment again, where he's sort of been capped out at 30, 31 minutes here, and we had him projected for 31 minutes prior to that. So, and honestly, for Rozier, I don't know how much of a boost this really is for him, just because of the fact that Martin coming off the floor, we had Rozier for 38 minutes. You're probably not going to project him for more there, and Martin's a very low usage guy. So for me, I think Miller actually gets a nice sneaky boost here, and that could be another tournament pivot play there, where he's a guy who, when he's on the floor, he's had good usage, right? When you look at the splits with LaMelo and PJ Washington and Gordon Hayward off the floor so far this year, 25% usage rate for Brandon Miller. So those are good numbers for him, and now he could potentially see that. I would probably say 33 to 34 minute projection, but if the game stays close, maybe he has a ceiling game of 36 minutes here, and that's a big number for a guy who's 6K and he's scored at times. Obviously, he's a guy who's going to be sort of propelled by actual scoring, so it could be some high variance if he has a bad night shooting or whatnot. But I like Brandon Miller quite a bit now. I think he could potentially see a nice bump in minutes. And then in terms of bench guys, I don't think they really matter for DFS, but Nick Smith, JT Thor, if you wanted to throw darts on some value guys, they could make some sense, but I don't think we're going crazy there.
I think you're going to pick one. I think it's Nick Smith. I agree with your thought there. Steve in chat saying Nick Smith was taking 20 shots tonight. He was a chucker in college. I don't know that. Can anybody confirm? You guys watch some college basketball? Is he somebody that likes to chuck? Anybody?
He was. Yeah, he was. But I don't think he's going to have the opportunity to take 20 shots tonight.
He's is that the Arkansas guy?
Yeah.
No, I don't. Rozier's a chucker now.
Yeah.
There's a hierarchy here, and Nick Smith ain't in it.
Yeah.
I agree with Kyle, by the way. I don't think it doesn't hurt really Rozier, but I don't think it helps him significantly. He already was getting He was already getting a big chunk, and I don't know what more he can get. If anything, maybe it hurts him there's a one less competent basketball player on the court, just as far as keeping the game close, as far as completing his assists, that kind of thing. But all right. Chop, did I cut you off? If I did, I apologize. Did you want to finish your thought? And the only thing I want to throw out there, Kyle, you were talking about which one was it? I'm getting confused. Was it Richards or was it Miller that it came out that one of those two was dealing with an illness recently? Do you know what I'm talking about?
Richards had something going on, but I think was it a couple weeks ago you're talking?
I thought this was like a recent thing where it just kind of came out not too long ago. It wasn't really talked about, and then like afterwards, it's like, yeah, he was dealing with something. And now I want to find which one of those two it was. I know it was one of them, but I don't recall. My apologies. Anything else here? The Kings, like we should mention Sabonis, who just broke the slate last night. He should be good here for sure. He's got a very good price when you consider, what we're expecting here versus Charlotte. It's a great matchup versus Charlotte. Whatever they're going to throw at him on the inside, he should dominate. But whatever the inside there for Charlotte, Nick Richards and JT Thor and the rookie Mensah. Sabonis is great. I slightly have him over Fox if I'm going to pick one of those two. And also, it's really tough when it comes to Fox as far as the comparison. Shopping around at that price point in the same game. Like Brazier looks spectacular. Maxey looks good. There's a lot of good guards. And again, what if we lose DeJounte Murray? Do we have a take here, Kyle, as far as Sabonis versus Fox? Which one do you prefer?
Yeah, I missed bad on this decision last night when I was very overweight on Fox. So that stung because obviously Sabonis had that 37-point triple-double. But I think I lean Sabonis again here. I do think that people are going to be very kind of out on Fox tonight just because of last night. And obviously, if you're going to play King, I do think people will inherently prefer Sabonis. But I think Sabonis is a very interesting play, potentially even, the best spend up on the slate here. It's just such a good spot for him. You do have to worry a little bit about the back-to-back and, potentially a blowout here. I think it's an 8 or 9 point spread. So nothing crazy in terms of the blowout risk there. But I think for Sabonis, the rebounding matchup is what really stands out here. I think 25th in terms of potential rebound opportunities allowed by the Hornets there. So, it could easily be one of those 20 rebound games for Sabonis here.
That's sort of my thought process as well. And every once in a while, he gets that triple-double, too, when he gets assist happy. In chat, Boss Sports is telling us that it was Miller with the illness. I couldn't recall which of those two it was. And like he wasn't playing great, and that might have been part of the reason. They were essentially saying like he was a team player or a gamer. I can't remember the phrase they used, but that's why he was still basically gutting through it. And of course, his team is decimated. Chop, anything else? Last word as far as Charlotte and Sacramento. I'm curious what the projection team's going to do with the adjustment of those 30 minutes. Maybe we'll kind of circle back if there's anything relevant, but we should move on. Unless you got anything else there, Chopper?
Move on. All
right. Thank you for whispering the dulcet tones. The San Antonio Spurs take on Kyle's Detroit Pistons. I'm sure it's this is Detroit Pistons. Sure, why not? 238 is the total of Pistons. Just a 3-point dog because the Spurs are pretty terrible too. Spurs pretty healthy. No Zach Collins. Pistons, with the exception of Cade Cunningham. Beef Stew got upgraded to doubtful. Probably not playing tonight, but just sort of stay tuned. He's coming back, I assume, soon with that toe. Wembanyama is just incredible. He's a lot of fun. This is, this is an NBA DFS game, right? If you're an NBA fan, you're probably not watching. Well, maybe you watch Wemby. Wemby's pretty fun to watch, sure. Kyle, what do we got here? Didn't you on scores and odds? I think you wrote up a Jalen Duren prop today, did you not? I think you did. And that was you? Yes.
Yep.
I wrote one up as well. Wrote it up yesterday too. Over 2.5 assists, like plus 135. We got it again today. We're doubling down. He got there, and his assist rate does go up in the absence of Cunningham. He's not obviously a point guard, of course, but the number is only 2.5. We bet it again. We bet the alt number too. So we're chasing the alt number here against the Spurs. The Spurs give up like the 5th most assists. Jalen Duren, he's handsy, right? That's kind of an issue. The Spurs also give up the fewest. They draw the fewest fouls in the league. They also play really, really fast, 3rd fastest pace. They also give up a ton of points. I think they're 5th as far as defensive efficiency, 5th in the negative sense as far as yielding points. So it's a good matchup here for Detroit. Good matchup for San Antonio. Kyle, talk to me about your Pistons. What was your prop? I think yours was points and rebounds for Jalen.
Points and assists. So we
Okay.
both need some dimes there. Yeah. So I think honestly, I think he goes over the points and assist number on points alone here. I think it was 17.5. I have him for 19 points here. So I think he crushes here. You mentioned what he's been doing sort of with Cade out. usage rate up over 25%. Pretty small sample size, so you want to scale that back a little bit. But even projecting him to have a 20% usage rate is a nice bump over his 16.5, 17% regular season rate. So yeah, I love Duren here. Also a great rebounding matchup here. 28th in terms of potential rebounds allowed for the Spurs. So I think Duren crushes on the glass. I think he racks up some points as well. So Duren I like a lot in this game. And his ownership has kind of gone up throughout the day, but still think he's a strong DFS play as well. And then in terms of the guards here, I guess the ball handlers, Ivy, Bogdanovic, Hayes, all three of these guys were at least popular or performed well last night. Ivy looks like he could potentially be in a spot where he's a little bit more popular than he was last night. And Hayes kind of reversing that trend, right? He was super popular last night, had a bad game. I'm assuming he's probably going to be pretty low owned here. So I think it's a spot where I'm going to go back to Hayes as a pivot off of some other chalk in that range and sort of hope that you get a little bit of good regression there and some good variance. But so I like Hayes, like Duren. I think Ivy and Bogdanovic are also strong plays. And then in terms of contrarian tournament plays, Alec Burks, I think, makes some sense. He's actually more expensive than Hayes. He's not going to play as many minutes, but he's going to have a lot of usage coming off the bench there. I think he had a 31% usage rate last game. So that's a big number and a great matchup here. So I think all of these guys are in play on the Pistons side. I also took Vassell over 22.5 on scores and odds. I think he's fine for DFS purposes as a contrarian play. Probably not going overboard though. Wemby, you can always play Wemby, but I mean, you do need sort of a ridiculous efficiency just because he's so limited minutes wise. And he's done that back-to-back games now with right around 2 fantasy point per minute. Tough to ask for him, but he's been doing it and it's a great matchup. So I think Wemby's still fine. I like Vassell, and then Trey Jones looking pretty popular, maybe a little bit too popular for my liking, but he's always been a fairly efficient producer, so I don't mind Trey Jones either.
Yeah, we're projecting Wemby for 26 minutes. 26 minutes and 43 DK points to be precise. So his fantasy points per minute, obviously outrageous. Michael and Chap always telling us narrative street French Heritage Night tonight in Detroit with Wembanyama in town. It says Wemby versus Killian Hayes boost. Is Killian Hayes also French? I wasn't aware of it. He is. There you go. All right. Get your French stack tonight. You said 17. Was it 17.5? I just pulled it up in the sports book for my sports book. 17.5 Duren points and assists. All right. We're going to hit the over on it. I'm sorry if I'm mushing you. People think I'm a mush sometimes, Kyle. My apologies in advance. But I'm jumping aboard the points and the assist as well. Chop, what do you got? San Antonio and Detroit. What are our thoughts?
Let me see here, Dean. San Antonio, Detroit. Yeah, I think it's the same cast of characters as last night for Detroit, which we hit on, which was Duren quite a bit. I think he can overpower the front line of San Antonio with his size, not his height, obviously, but his bulk, his strength. So I like that one. Bogdanovic did not do us wrong last night, so I can go back to the well there. That's for sure. Unexciting game from Killian Hayes. I mean, he didn't cost you like a lot in cash, but you probably didn't win with him in GPPs unless you hit the nuts otherwise. So I probably expect a little bit better game from him tonight, but still, he's very uninspiring. Actually, he got, did he get $1,000 boost? Yeah, he got $1,000 boost overnight. Hard pass on Killian Hayes. All right?
I'm shocked. Wait, the sites are raising the prices of these players?
A G in one night off of an 18-point game don't do it for me, so I'll pass on that one. And then on the San Antonio side, they got some nice young pieces that can do some things fantasy-wise. I think Trey Jones is a little bit underpriced. I like guys in that price range that can grab me 30-plus points, and he could do it. Keldon Johnson is a little bit more expensive, but a little bit better. And there's an outside chance. How many? Let's see. Wembanyama hasn't played in – it's been 3 days now, 3 days rest. Yeah, I don't know, man.
Don't play tomorrow. But not that he would anyway, probably. They're probably resting him on back-to-backs anyway. But it's an island game is what you're saying.
Yeah, there's a lot of rest for him, and maybe they push those minutes up, which have been – you're not going to pay $8,900 typically for 25 minutes. But this guy against Detroit, if they somehow run him up for 30 minutes, obviously I think we'd all sign up for that, right? Like
30? Oh, lock button, 30.
Exactly. So maybe that's the case here. 3 nights rest and probably some more days to follow. So yeah, I'm not, there's an interesting game here with some good young pieces.
Capella's out, by the way, which means it's going to be a Kungwu season. The Kungwu is going to be crazy popular. Does that mean we're also going to get an update on DeJounte Murray and then it's just going to be all the
Is
Hawks.
DeJounte getting traded back to the Spurs?
He is. I saw Josh Lloyd tweeting out about it. He's always on top of this stuff. He says there's two guys that are most likely to get traded. I think it was D'Angelo Russell and DeJounte Murray. He says like those are the two most likely guys to get traded. So Murray probably on the move at some point. I don't think that's what's happening here. I think he's probably legit got something injury-wise. Yeah, he was questionable, and I think that was that. I thought that was going to happen, and I wouldn't be surprised if Minnesota rules somebody else out too, just because of the nonsense they had with getting to Boston and the plane stuff. Conley, old man Conley's out as well. I say old man, he's probably 33, but old basketball old, right? But that Minnesota side, we might get some weird stuff out of Minnesota, and we're not getting a fun matchup versus Boston, I don't think. But do we get an update as far as Murray or nothing? We just got only one answer when it comes to
nothing so far other than Wesley Matthews also out for anyone who's trying to play Wes Matthews. We'll just hope.
We got Luka out tomorrow, and I don't know if you guys watched the game last night. Man, he is struggling. Like you can tell he's dealing with injuries, and he went to the locker room twice. And I was trying to see if I can find a line betting against Dallas because I thought for sure, like if you watch that game, it's like I know he's gutting it out and good for him, but Luka is like hurting. He's not playing tomorrow, but we'll deal with that tomorrow. Capella being out is a big deal, and I think Okongwu is just going to be the top center, right? Like, is that fair to say against Paul Reed and whatever? Phil, obviously if Embiid was there, it'd be a little trickier, but he's going to jump in the starting lineup. And the other thing, somebody had a question in chat. This probably elevates a lot of the Atlanta guys. We'll see. Somebody had a 1v1 question here, Kyle, in chat. Tyus Jones or Atlanta Bogdanovich? Thank you for telling us which Bogdanovich because that matters. Atlanta Bogdanovich. We don't know if Murray's playing or not. I think if Murray's out, it's for sure Bogdanovich. It's probably Bogdanovich either way, I think.
Yeah, Bogdanovich for me. I mean, great matchup for Tyus Jones. Just hasn't had the upside that I wanted him to have coming into the year.
Oh, Biyombo was waived by Memphis. They waived him last night in the middle of the game, I think. I'm pretty sure it wasn't officially done. But Tillman played his ass off, by the way. Tillman, who was like, I don't know if you saw, he had like a 3-minute stint and just kicked out of the game a couple games ago. And last night he got a chance. He came in and he was playing awesome. And like Biyombo just like barely got back in the game. I think his minutes were justified, but I guess he played well enough, and also Biyombo playing poor enough that Biyombo is hitting the streets. But okay, anything else here, Kyle, as far as San Antonio and Detroit, or shall we move on?
I think we're good.
All right, next game, 8:00. Oh, this is another fun one. This is another DFS one, right? Washington and Indiana, 252 is the total. Big boy total. Indiana 8-point favorites, despite the fact they are without Tyrese Halliburton, future All-Star Tyrese Halliburton. Hopefully he'll be there to actually play some basketball in Indiana. That'll be cool for him. But no Halliburton on the Washington side. It's just Landry Shamet. I'll throw it to you, Kyle. As far as the Pacers, obviously, we know the great matchup here versus Washington. Washington terrible at a lot of things. Really, really terrible, like historically terrible at rebounding. Have you played the shell game of trying to figure out like which big man pacer it's going to be that's like gets more minutes than projected? That's always a lot of fun. But somebody, you have to assume one amongst Turner or Smith or Toppin or Jackson, like one of those guys probably has like a smash night, maybe two, because it's the Wizards. And then McConnell, we're projecting him to come off the bench, but still, it's fine. Nembhard looks like a really good point per dollar play, maybe a cash game play. Your thoughts as far as the Pacers first?
Yeah, honestly, I think it's a spot where if you're doing 150 lineups, MMing it's a great spot to make a couple of groups here, and you can loop in guys like Bruce Brown, Nesmith, Nembhard, McConnell as like the guard or like the ball handling group, and then the big man group with Jalen Smith, Miles Turner. I guess you can throw Nesmith in that group as well, Obi Toppin, and just kind of hope that. And I guess, limit it to one or two of those guys and hope that you kind of get the right one in the right lineups. But, honestly, from a projection standpoint, it's strange because, you just took Halliburton out. So you're expecting, to see a ton of fireworks from this team. But we don't have anybody projected for more than 29 minutes. Miles Turner, 29 minutes. Nobody is projecting for 30 minutes right now. And I don't really think that that's wrong. So, honestly, anyone who's chalk for the Pacers, I think I'm going to fade or look to pivot off of. So I won't be playing much Nembhard, and I know Killian Hayes not a sexy play, but Killian Hayes is going to play more minutes than Nembhard tonight based on our projections. And I know Nembhard's in the better game, but he's not like he's a better a much better permanent producer. So I'll take my odds on Hayes over Nembhard there just because of the ownership. McConnell, I think, is a really strong play. I think him coming off the bench is the best thing you could ask for because he's never going to play a lot of minutes. Even if he was starting, he's not going to go out there and play 32 minutes. So just him coming off the bench is going to keep the ownership down. I think McConnell is the best play from the Pacers right now. In terms of the chalky guys that I would play, Smith is probably the one that I would play because I think that he's such a good permanent producer. He can play 22, 23 minutes and put up 40 DK points, and I wouldn't really bat an eye. So Smith, I don't mind. Nembhard will probably be underway down or maybe even full fade. And then McConnell, I like quite a bit as well. Mathurin, I think, is in the sort of same boat as McConnell. He can go out there and score 30 actual points. I wouldn't be all that surprised. So I'll probably, only play him in lineups where I don't have McConnell, but I do think that he's also still a very interesting tournament play. But I think the issue is I just like McConnell a little bit more. I think he's just a little bit better of a permanent producer. So I'll take McConnell over Mathurin, and then I also like Jalen Smith in this one. But definitely some spots I'll be fading like Nembhard in this one.
Hey, Kyle, Derek has a question. Yes, how would you rank Okongwu, Jalen Smith, Naz Reid, Jovic? I think Okongwu's first, right, amongst that group. Okongwu, Jalen, Naz, Jovic. I think Jovic is last.
Yeah.
And it's like Naz versus Jalen in the middle.
Yeah, I think it would be in that order. So I would go Okongwu, Reed, Jalen, and then Jovic.
Chop, jump in here. What do you got as far as Wizards, Indiana, the thing that Kyle's talking about, the Pacers are kind of annoying because nobody really plays a ton of minutes, and also like it's sort of like variance as well. Some guys will play 20 one night and 28 the next night and 30. Sometimes they get the 30, 30, 31, 32. Turner is a guy that like doesn't really get pushed too hard. But the matchup, of course, here is pretty prime, and the absence of Halliburton certainly matters. Without Halliburton, McConnell, 1.38 fantasy points per minute. That's really, really strong, obviously. Is he the highest guy? Fantasy points per minute without Halliburton. Jackson, 1.13. I'm not sure if that's anything different, though. That's basically what he gets. That might actually be less. I think that is less. Jalen Smith a little bit less too. Maybe that's because Halliburton sets him up for assists. Not really certain on that. Some easy buckets. But the biggest boost is Nembhard, Mathurin, Brown, McConnell when it comes to DK points around 0.1-ish. Usage-wise, Brown gets the biggest boost. Then Mathurin, then Nembhard, and then Naismith. Chop, Indiana.
Yeah.
Feel free to jump to Washington as well.
All right. Well, you listen, if I'm playing a cash game, I think Nembhard's a guy I'm probably looking at near the top of my process of putting in there, just a cash game guy. But I don't think I want him in tournaments. I'm going to see how it plays out after the show. But I don't think I'm a big tournament Nembhard guy because I just don't know his upside. Like I was alluding to, I think there's higher upside with TJ McConnell, irregardless of who's starting and who's not starting. I think McConnell has a better upside. So McConnell there. For tournaments, I actually do like Miles Turner quite a bit. He's played Washington a couple times this year. He's been quite terrible against them. He's not good. And he's gotten more minutes against Washington than he usually gets. So I don't know what the matchup is or if it was just flukish, but I'm still willing to go to Miles Turner. I think Miles Turner will be better than he is with Halliburton in there. I think he'll be better without Halliburton. So I don't know. Something about their games doesn't jive. So I don't mind Miles Turner. On the Washington side, the Opto's trying to force in some Corey Kispert. That's a hard pass for me. I need a little more upside in my tournaments. Denny Avila. I don't
Who's
mind.
that now?
Denny Avila. I like a little Denny Avila. Okay. Mind that. Kyle Kuzma. This is a pretty good matchup for him. The rest of those guys are probably a hard pass.
I just we got a new batch of projections with the Okongwu coming in around 31 ish DK points. 4.8K is the asking price. I capped my players at I want no more than 72% or so, and he is the one guy hitting the cap. Bogdanovich, we talked about Bogdanovich for Atlanta. This is before Murray is rolled out or rolled in. He's coming in as the fourth most popular play. One uncomfortable one is Kyle Anderson, slow-mo coming in at 52%. That one, we'll get there, but that feels uncomfortable for tournaments for me. Kind of an older guy. Again, they had a rough time getting into Boston. If this game gets ugly, I don't think he plays a ton necessarily. He wouldn't be a mopper. But all right, just wanted to note that. I thought that was kind of interesting. Rozier, by the way, hitting this stuff, and Nembhard and Turner are hitting optimals pretty hard, 25%. We see Jalen Smith coming in as well. Kyle, did you give your thoughts as far as Washington? Certainly Kuzma, I think, is the most interesting, but he's also the most expensive. Gafford, center is going to be tougher now with Okongwu looking really, really strong. I saw somebody in chat asking about Mo Bamba. Man, there's an opportunity cost at center, and we'll get there, right? The absence of Embiid, but his minutes are pretty fragile. You never really know. But let's talk about Washington first. Kyle, your thoughts as far as the Wizards?
Yeah, I like Kuzma quite a bit here in this spot. I will say some of my builds that I've been working on so far, it's just sort of just missing him in terms of his price range. But I do think, he projects really well for me. I like him quite a bit. I will say Jordan Poole is a guy who's, if you have him in your lineups, you don't want to watch the game. But you look at him being just $700 more than Andrew Nembhard. If you have the salary there, I'll play Poole over Nembhard. The ceiling is just higher for Jordan Poole. Like, Nembhard's probably, I know he did a couple times last year, a couple of really big games, but in terms of the odds of these two, going out there and scoring 30 actual points and having that big ceiling game, definitely give the edge to Poole there, even though we're not really in a spot where we're projecting Poole for a ton of minutes. I just think the ceiling's a bit higher there. I think he's one of those contrarian plays that make a lot of sense. It's going to be a fast-paced game with a lot of points. That sounds like it could benefit a guy like Poole. Again, it's tough to really, really sell anybody on Poole because of how bad he's been. But I do still think that he has a higher ceiling than some of the guys who are going to be very, very chalky in this price range. So Poole and Kuzma are the guys that I'm mainly looking at for Washington.
He seems like a guy that just don't want to give he would certainly benefit with a matchup in Indiana, but for whatever reason, they're keeping his minutes down 29, 23, 22, 28, 24, 27.
Probably because he sucks.
Well, yeah, I mean, but the Wizards suck as is, right? Like the whole thing sucks. But yeah, that's a fair counter. But okay, who are you putting in instead of him? I bet that guy sucks too.
Yeah, but do you see all the clips of Poole, not looking at the plays being drawn up and stuff? At that point, you're just get on the bench, man.
It's a good thing they're not committed to the next 5. Oh wait, they are. They are committed for the next 5 years to Jordan Poole or whatever it is. Oh, it's rough. When you're a Pistons fan, you can at least say, you know what? At least I'm not a Wizards fan. I think it's better if you get right. Who would you rather be attached to if you had to pick one of those two, Detroit or Washington? Kyle, I know you're on Detroit. Yeah,
sure. I'd rather watch some MLS.
Fair enough. Is there a Detroit MLS team?
No, but I think they're working on one though, I believe.
Yeah. All right, let's move on. The last of the 7 o'clock games. We talked about this one a little bit already. Minnesota and Boston, 224 is the total. Boston, is it still 9 or 9.5 or so? What's the number here? With the absence of Gobert has been ruled out for Minnesota. It's not just Gobert, though. We talked about Mike Conley. Mike Conley is not playing also. Boston did rule out Porzingis. It is the front half of a back-to-back, so I think Horford's going to play tonight. That's the expectation, and I assume he will sit tomorrow, most likely. They did say he had an illness, but I guess he's fine. Otherwise, I assume he would probably rest tonight and play tomorrow. Jason Tatum is back from whatever injury stuff he had. Hauser is also back with his shoulder. So Boston's just without Porzingis. Minnesota without Conley and Gobert. I saw people in chat asking about Cat here at Chopper. Cat was awesome last night. The price is still pretty good. He's a center. Well, actually, center power forward. But, let's start with the T-Wolves. And I also want to talk about the Kyle Anderson thing because I think that feels like bad chalk if he ends up being chalky to me.
Kyle Anderson, chalk. Buddy.
Bad, right?
Yeah, that does not intrigue me at all. I'm not interested in that. Logan Diggs is going to Ole Miss. Kyle, Logan Diggs transferring to Ole Miss.
Interesting.
Yeah. Can you believe Ohio State got that's what are they doing with two running backs like that, man?
I know.
I don't even know where they're gonna why he would go there and Judkins and be part of a committee like that when he had all to himself at Ole Miss. But let's say Boston. I was much more intrigued on Boston as GBP options earlier in the day when all these guys weren't going to sit, and looked like it could be a more competitive game. I'm not so high on Tatum now. I was, but not now. So, this was already going to be a defensive game, but I was kind of banking on minutes now because Boston doesn't get that many minutes, to be honest with you. they have a lot of blowouts, and when you look at their game logs, those blowouts equal very, very limited minutes for some of those guys. But when they play competitive games, Tatum can get up 37 plus every time, right? But now I got my worries that this thing's going to be ultra competitive. So I don't think I'm on the Boston guys. They're priced appropriately. Kyle Anderson, I'm going to pass on the Kyle Anderson chalk against a defensive team like Boston, who's more than likely at full strength tonight. So I'm going to pass on that. I'm always intrigued by Anthony Edwards. We said it yesterday, but 9,100 might be a little bit much to pay against Boston, but I do like Anthony Edwards in general. I think he makes for an interesting GPP. I don't know about the matchup, Can Minnesota keep this thing close? Maybe. He played them earlier this year, and he dropped 61 DK points on them, so I don't think it's like, a great offensive player in the NBA is always going to beat up on the great defense, but so maybe it's just some GPP darts, man. Tatum, Edwards, if you think this thing stays close. Otherwise, there's no cash game plays. I'm not buying into the Kyle Anderson in cash.
We're looking at 37 minutes for Edwards, 35 for Cat in the back half of back-to-back. And also, this game is like, if Boston's pulling away, you have to assume Minnesota more likely than they typically would give up on it just because it's the back half of a back-to-back. They had that travel issue. It's been a rough 24 hours for them. Jaden McDaniels expected to play 35 minutes, but he's more of a defensive player. Kyle Anderson, we're giving him 30 as well. Alexander Walker was a guy that was like looking to be in lineups earlier today, but I imagine that's going to fall back today now for the most part with some value opening up. 3-point DK, 19-point projection. Nas getting a 25-point projection at 5'2", which is fine. Power forward, center eligible. Chat's asking about what happens in a blowout. Like McLaughlin would get more run. I'm not sure if I would take a shot in McLaughlin, but I had to run a lot of lineups to get to McLaughlin. I'm curious, Kyle, if you're running a bunch of lineups today, how are you figuring out this Minnesota stuff? And we're going to get ownership an update there. Obviously, there's been a big shuffle, and the ownership right now is not accurate because it's as of 5 o'clock and news has changed. But what do you got as far as Minnesota? Feel free to touch on Boston as well. Knock it all out.
Yeah, McLaughlin, I think he's actually probably fine for. I do want to see where his final ownership projection comes in, because if he's really, really popular, I probably don't want to take a ton of stabs there. But in terms of his projection based on his salary, I do think it's fine. There's not a ton of like really cheap guys that I love, and early like Trey Lyles was going to be really popular, so I'm staying away from that. But if that's going to be a pivot that you could potentially use off of a really cheap guy, he does make some sense. Anderson, if he's really popular, I agree with you guys. It's not the most fun thing for chalky Kyle Anderson, but this is a game where I do think Gobert being out changes kind of the landscape of the game, right? Where just you have Gobert, who's arguably the best defensive player in the NBA, out of the game. You're probably looking for more points to be scored in this game now. So it could be a spot where the game environment actually gets better because of that. Nas Reed, I think, is a pretty interesting play. I don't think we'll see Nas Reed get all that popular. I could be wrong, so definitely want to check the ownership projections. But if Nas Reed is going to stay as a pretty contrarian option, I mean, you already have guys like Jalen Smith, Okongwu. I think they'll all get more love than Nas Reed, who I don't think you're going to see projecting for like 28, 30 minutes. But Nas Reed's a really good permanent guy. So Reed, I like. I think you can make a strong case for both Cat and Anthony Edwards as contrarian plays in that range. Like, we just talked about Kuzma. I think I would probably still prefer Kuzma over Cat, but it's close. I think these guys are both firmly in play now, though. So, I think overall, with Gobert being out, I think this game might, push the pace a little bit more and maybe see a little bit more scoring on both sides. But on the Boston side, I think Derek White's a pretty interesting tournament play. He's probably the only Celtic that I get a ton of interest in. He doesn't get a huge boost with Porzingis out, but he does get, a 2 or 3% usage bump, which is actually the highest amongst all these top four guys: Holiday, White, Jaylen Brown, and Jason Tatum. So White is a guy that I have some interest in as a tournament option, 7-6. I don't think anybody plays Derek White, so he'll probably be sub 1 or 2% owned. So White's probably the Celtic that I'm looking at the most here.
Yeah, I shouldn't have fully poo-pooed McLaughlin, like you said. He's a better fantasy point per minute player than Na as well. And we've seen it before where like Na starts and just kind of disappears sometimes based upon performance, that kind of thing. It doesn't mean he can't get there, but yeah, like you said, it's worth monitoring what the ownership stuff is going to be for Minnesota, because in theory there is some value there. On the season, Alexander Walker 0.7 fantasy points per minute, McLaughlin 1.04. I did run a court IQ and I kicked off Connolly and Rudy Gobert. Not a ton changes. We do see a rebounding boost for Cat, which is not terribly surprising. As far as fantasy points per minute or usage, like Cat's usage goes up 1%. Danny McDaniel's 0.2. Like it's not a big effect. And even fantasy points per minute is not affected a ton. Cat up 0.1, Edwards up 0.1, which is certainly positive, but not a huge deal. We should move on from the 7 o'clock games. That's half the slate down, half the slate to go. We should mention, by the way, if you don't feel like making lineups on your own tonight, let SimLabs do it. Use SimLabs to generate DFS lineups with the power of simulation. It combines data from every aspect of the slate to churn out lineups that match your preferences. Just a few clicks, you can have hundreds of well-built, correlated lineups ready to go for whatever contest type you're playing. And now, including NBA, it's the debut. It's in beta right now, the debut of the NBA. I've not had a chance to dig into this just yet, but the NBA SimLabs, it is free while it is currently in beta mode. I believe the plan is that it's going to be free until Sunday. Don't hold me to that. I think that's what the read was yesterday. All combo and NFL premium subscribers, you have access to NFL SimLabs into the playoffs also, if you're not aware. All right, we shall move on. Have you had a chance, Kyle? Have you had a chance to mess with that? I have not. I know some people are messing with it on the back end. Is there anything you can add as far as the NBA SimLab stuff, or not just yet?
Yeah, so I was messing with it the last 2 days, and I didn't build a ton of lineups with it, but I was going through the optimal rates and comparing that to ownership quite a bit. Right on the dashboard, you have all the players' optimal percentages, how often they're going to be in the best lineup compared to their ownership, and that's honestly the best possible way I can recommend anybody building tournament lineups. So yeah, I think that's a great place to go.
They're asking in chat where it's at on the site. Maybe we can get producer Steve to copy and paste it and drop it in chat for the people. I'm trying to find it here on the fly, but again, I have not had a chance to dig into it, but I'm looking forward to seeing it. Yeah, several people are asking for it in chat. Yeah, we'll take care of it. We'll go ahead and drop it in chat, a link to the NBA SimLabs 8 o'clock game. Is it 8 o'clock or 7:30? There it is. Producer Steve, thank you so much. There it is for the people. Have at it. Enjoy it until, again, don't hold me to it, but I believe it's till Sunday. It's going to be free. OKC at Miami, 233.5 is the total. The Thunder are 5-point favorites. They're also fully healthy coming in to Miami. Miami is not fully healthy. No Jimmy Butler, no Kyle Lowry, no Caleb Martin. We are expecting Josh Richardson to be good to go with his neck. Kyle, I will throw this to you. The Thunder versus my Heat. How do we feel about this game? Anybody jumping out for you?
Yeah, a couple of interesting tournament plays. I think looking at it last night, I thought that some of these Heat guys might be pretty popular. Some of the value options, but doesn't look like that way at all. And a lot of times you can find some pretty good tournament plays that were going to be popular maybe the night before, early in the morning, and then value plays just kind of wash them over. But Richardson, he projects pretty well. He closed last game, which I think is pretty indicative of his minutes floor and also ceiling. So Richardson I like as a value option. I think Bam makes a lot of sense here. It's a great matchup for rebounding here. So Bam could have a monster game. Maybe you're looking at a 15-plus rebound upside game for Bam. So I like him quite a bit. And then as a tournament option, Jaime Jaquez I like quite a bit. There's just no way that they can realistically not play him a ton of minutes right now. They're just too thin, and he does so much for this team. He can play multiple different positions. So he projects to play like 36 to 38 minutes pretty securely. And if he plays 40 minutes, I would not be surprised at all if this game, stays close wire to wire and he's out there for 40 minutes. I would not be surprised. So Jaquez, I think, makes some sense as a tournament play. And, we just talked about SimLabs. Jaquez was a guy who's been popping in SimLabs today. So he's definitely someone that I have on my radar for tournaments. In terms of Oklahoma City, I think SGA is a really strong tournament option. I think a lot of people are going to be building balance builds, and SGA is just kind of going to get lost in the wash there. With no Butler, this defense does take quite a hit here for Miami. So it is typically a tough matchup. 13th in defensive efficiency, so nothing crazy, but obviously it's something that has been over the last couple of weeks with Butler not playing much. So I think it's a good spot for SGA, who I do have a pretty good amount of interest in here. Yeah,
Kyle, Jaquez is projected for 37 minutes. Derek wants to know Jaquez, or I guess that's Brandon Miller, I'm assuming. Who do you prefer amongst those two?
Oh, that's tough. I'm actually gonna go Brandon Miller there. I think it's very close. I think Miller's probably the higher upside guy. Jaquez is probably a safer option though.
You got a thought on Jovic? They're asking. I'm not sure if you gave it. I apologize if you did, but I don't think you talked about Jovic. Sometimes he starts and just disappears. The minutes are not reliable. Yeah. But and he looks like he flashes. Like but he's still really, really young. He's pretty young. He's pretty raw. By the way, shout out to Spoelstra. Yeah, shout out to Spoelstra. 8 years, $120 million. Is that what the number is? Good for him. Best coach in basketball, sticking around in Miami and South Beach for the next 8 years.
Even better, Dean. Even better for him. And props to Miami for delaying the contract extension
after the divorce.
So his ex-wife couldn't get a piece of it. Props, man.
I don't know how that works. I don't know if there's retroactive stuff. That's probably going to be challenged. Who knows? I don't know. I wonder if that was like done on purpose as like, but yeah, that's certainly worth exploring, I suppose. And I imagine her lawyer probably would, who knows? We'll see. That'll be interesting to follow, I suppose. The Bam thing I love the Bam call. He's expensive, but like, OKC, the Thunder, awesome basketball team, but they're one bugaboo. They're most vulnerable as far as rebounding. The second worst rebounding team in the league. If Washington wasn't the worst rebounding team we've seen in our lifetime, possibly, the Thunder might be the worst in the league. But so Bam, like certainly, I think he's really interesting for prop stuff too. I think the number was 11.5. That's where I last saw it at. It's a pretty big number, but I think he's interesting on the ladder. Chop, Miami, OKC.
Miami, OKC. Doesn't really jump out to me, Dean. Nothing really jumps out to me, but I guess I could get behind some Jaime Jaquez Jr. He's pretty good. He's $500 cheaper on DraftKings than FanDuel, so that matters. His price tag, like everybody price goes up, but Jaime dropped down $100 since the last time we saw him on a main slate, so you got that going for you. Otherwise, I'm not into the Kevin Love stuff or Bam's expensive now. Hero's kind of expensive. On the other side there, OKC. Yeah, I don't know. Shai Gilgeous got a big price tag. He's a really good player, though. He should be pretty good in this matchup. Chet. I'd be interested to see this matchup with Chet and Bam. I'm not sure I want to chase Chet tonight. I think I'd rather see how he reacts to this kind of a matchup. So you got that. Jalen Williams, interesting, 7K. He can get you into the 30s if he gets hot. So I don't know. And then your boy, your favorite player, Josh Giddey. But I mean, other than that, that's about it, Dean.
Giddey's kind of falling behind. I don't think he's long for OKC. I think he moves on at some point. Their core, I don't think he's involved in them going forward. Daniel's asking, we think Hampton's going to get some minutes. I think we're projecting like 12 or so for Hampton. 18, but he's not a strong fantasy point minute player. I know he's 3K, but that's really ambitious on this slate. Hard to trust RJ Hampton. And there's plenty of value stuff out there, like at least decent enough where I don't think it's fully necessary. Okay. And somebody asked about Hero. Clay's asking. Hero's fine. Like he's new ownership, by the way. New ownership stuff came in. Let's see. We have, as far as this game, 13% for Bam, SGA at 12, Josh Richardson around 11 or so. Kind of one of those, like that could be a straight pivot, Kyle, right? Like we talk about not wanting to play slow-mo. And I don't really want to play Josh Richardson either, but like, certainly Josh Richardson could outscore Kyle Anderson. It wouldn't shock either one of us, right? They're basically the same price. Is Anderson shooting guard though, or is he small forward? I'm not sure. I was thinking like a 1v1 swap, but just that's where my brain was thinking. Anyways, let's move on. We got 3 more games. Let's knock it out. Crunch time coming in 15, 20 minutes or so. We got part of the news when it comes to Atlanta, but maybe there's some more news coming in. 245 is the total, so it's a big boy total for sure, and it's high and it's tight because Philly is just a 1-point favorite. So this looks like a bonanza for DFS points. Also, the absence of some players, of course, namely Embiid. No Embiid for Philadelphia. That's not really anything new, so prices have mostly adjusted to that situation. Melton is questionable. We're currently projecting him to be in. Covington's out. That doesn't really matter so much. Trae Young officially has a shoulder, but he is probable. Murray's got that hamstrings. He's questionable. We saw Capella get ruled out. DeAndre Hunter's been out. Chops boy, Gary Bird, Garrison Matthews not playing basketball tonight. He's got an ankle. But I guess we start with Okongwu, right, Kyle? Let's see where the new ownership is on him. I assume he will be the most popular center on the slate. Is that fair to say? Let's see. Talk to me, Kyle, as I pull this up.
Yeah, it'd be pretty surprised if he wasn't up there, or at least number one. So he should be popular, and I think it makes sense for him to be. I mean, 4'8", I think a 30+ minute projection is pretty fair for him here, and for a guy who can very easily be a 1 fantasy point per minute producer. You're looking at 30+ DK points pretty easily at 4.8. So I think he makes a lot of sense. He's probably like, we've talked about some chalky value plays on the slate that I've been like pretty excited to fade, and I think that there are paths to fade in there. There's definitely a path for Okongwu to maybe get in foul trouble, although I don't really think he'll have a ton of trouble with Paul Reed, but that's always an issue for centers. But I think he's the best value play on the board pretty easily. Trae Young, I love Trae Young today. Honestly, I sort of hope that DeJounte Murray plays and nobody plays Trae Young. If Trae Young's going to be sub 10%, he's easily going to be the player that I'm most overweight on compared to the field. I like him quite a bit here. You talked about the game environment with the 246 total, 1.5 point spread. It should be an absolute shootout here, close game all the way through. I'd be pretty surprised if this game blows out one way or the other there. So, and it's a good matchup too. I mean, you look at this team. Obviously, if DeAnthony Melton's going to return, which it sounds like he is. I don't know if we've gotten official news there. The defense is a little bit better, but still, I mean, Trae Young, he can beat anybody on this Philly team. So, love Trae Young in this spot. If DeJounte Murray is out, Trae Young's obviously even better there. And I still think that I would like him even if he gets a little bit more popular. Jalen Johnson was a guy who I kind of wrote off last night when we were doing the Morning Grind podcast, but at 7K, he still actually projects pretty well for me. So Jalen Johnson, just when he's going to play 35 minutes, I think he's going to be in play here at 7K. So Young is definitely my favorite play from the Hawks. Okongwu as a value option. I do still like Jalen Johnson. On the other side, Maxey and Harris, I think, are really strong plays as well. Harris looks to be pretty popular, which I'm not thrilled about, but he does project pretty well here with no Embiid.
It looks like an awesome game stack. Like you can run like 2 2s or 2 3s in this game, pretty comfortably. I love the young call. Like if Murray's out, certainly his projection will be lower, but the ownership will be lower as well. The Okongwu thing, no surprise. He's currently projected to be the most popular player on both DK and on FanDuel. 48% on DK. In the power forward center multi-position eligibility certainly lends to that, and not just that, but the matchup, not just that, but the absence of Capella. And also on FanDuel, 56% on FanDuel at 5'6". He's also got multi-position eligibility with their center and power forward. Probably the first player you're putting in your cash lineup. Interesting for tournaments, but I think it's pretty good chalk. Reed, I think, was the most popular player on FanDuel earlier in the day. He's center and center only, but I think he falls back a little bit now. Chop, your take as far as Atlanta and Philly, and again, it would open up even more if Murray doesn't play. And the other interesting thought is that, like Kyle was saying, what about Young if Murray's in? But like, what about Murray if Murray is in? Because we're just thinking about like the trickle down effect, the domino effect, but nobody's going to play Murray, I don't think, if he plays. Just throwing it out there for tournament stuff. But Chop, what do you have as far as Philly, Atlanta? Are you as excited about this game as it sounds like myself and Kyle are as well?
Yeah, this is going to be the best game of the night for fantasy. Like, right, you gotta think of that's how it is now with these injuries, both centers being out in this game. Yeah, 40+% on Okongwu, but it's okay, chalk. It's Atlanta has all five of their starters are going to be projected for 30+ fantasy points. That's pretty good. You don't see that often, actually. So, and even a guy coming off the bench is going to have a big projection. So. You got a lot to like here. And on the Philly side is the one I was really focused on before the Atlanta news. Tyrese Maxey's in a great spot. Tobias Harris crushed earlier last month with Embiid out. Paul Reed is a walking time bomb with the fouls and everything. But, when he has his days, and his days probably got a little bit better, I think, with Capella out. When he has his days, he's really good for that price tag. If Melton plays, he's a solid player with Embiid out. Like, there's a lot to like on both sides of this game, but Atlanta, I think you could just throw like 3 of these guys. Just pick 3. Just pick 3 guys, man. Roll with them, and you're going to be all right. Like, everybody's going to get a good projection. Everybody's going to have a good matchup here. So, and yeah, if we do get DeJounte Murray news, it absolutely flips everything. You might need like 4 Atlanta guys at that point, but we'll see.
Young will be the most popular big spend, probably. Okongwu will be the most popular, mid-tier cheapie, whatever you want to call him. Bogdanovich would get a spike as well. I think we have Yeah, we do have an if-then set up for it. Should acknowledge that we already have the absence. One of those pieces have been ruled out with Capella being out. We had an if-then set up for both. Let me see. If both of them are out, we would have Trae Young for a 54 DK point projection, Jalen Johnson at a 39 DK point projection, Bogdanovich about 37 DK point projection, Sadiq Bey almost 30. Like those 5 players, Young, Johnson, Bogdanovich, Okongwu. Bey wouldn't be like a screaming DK or FanDuel value, basically a neutral value, but certainly in the pool. Don't be shocked if like Trent Forrest starts, but like you've seen that before. But like, over Bogdanovich, but almost definitely Bogdanovich would close over him, I think. I wouldn't run to Trent Forrest, just kind of throwing that out there if that may or may not happen. Do hit that like button, by the way. Hit that like button. I see producer Steve talking about in chat. Like, subscribe, turn on those notifications. Do all those things, man. Help us keep the lights on. Help us keep doing these shows. In about 10 minutes or so, you got Crunch Time coming in. It's Kevin Roth. You got Keith Eyster, as well as Taylor Smith coming in, taking you guys home. If you have any questions, we'll do our best to knock them out. But we still have 2 more games to get to. I'll throw this one to Chop because it is Chop's Houston Rockets at the Chicago Bulls. 216.5 is a total. Not very appealing in theory. The Rockets are 4-point dogs here, Chopper. As far as the injuries, who's in and who's out, Tari Eason continues to be out with his leg. Dylan Brooks continues to be out with the old oblique. And the Bulls, well, they're going to be as healthy as they've been in a while. Levine should be good to go with his foot and his shoulder. Patrick Williams should be good to go as well. Caruso's got that neck, but he should be available. Yeah, Chop, I'm not terribly enthused here. Houston, Chicago, are you?
Well, I'm not like totally against this game, like in terms of for Houston, Dylan Brooks has been out for a while now, but that matters. It still matters. And Eason being out definitely matters. So I think there's pieces there. Şengün got a $300 price decrease. So that's good. If you're into that kind of thing. I think 8,200 makes him very playable now. In this matchup, he's fine. He is what he is. I mean, he has massive upside when he gets rolling against the guy. So, and then Jabari, we've seen his upside with Tari Eason out, and Jalen Green / Cam Whitmore, not so much as far as fantasy, but Jalen Green is going to shoot more with Dylan Brooks out. So I think it matters. I think Houston has, there's some guys in there that have a path there. With Levine back for Chicago, yeah, that side of it is not, like you said, healthy now. Everybody's price as if Levine was out pretty much. So I don't think I want to go to anybody on the Chicago side. But I think you could one off some of these Houston guys according to how much money you have and how much money you have left over. But those are my favorites: Şengün, then Jabari because he has double upside on DraftKings, and then Jalen Green because if he gets hot from the 3-point range, he can put up a good game for. That's a pretty good price tag.
We're currently projecting Levine and Vooch still to come off the bench. It wouldn't surprise me if they jumped in the starting lineup. Comment by Donovan. He said basically they essentially played starter minutes. I'm paraphrasing, but it seems like they're essentially where they've been at more or less. So wouldn't be surprised if he sort of jumps in there. If those guys jump in, I don't know how much that matters. Like, sure, you can play Levine. Kyle, what do you got as far as Houston and the Bulls? Do you expect a lot of change for Chicago? Are you with me as far as Levine and Vooch jumping in? We'll see. We'll know at some point.
Yeah, I think I'm with you. I think from a Chicago perspective, probably not playing much here. Houston, they are better at home than on the road, which they are tonight on the road. And then obviously with no Dylan Brooks and no Tari Eason, their defense does take a little bit of a step back there. But still, I don't know if I'm looking to target anybody on the Chicago side, just getting a little bit more kind of muddied there with Vooch and Levine returning. But so yeah, probably writing off Chicago. On the Houston side, though, I think Şengün is really interesting. He's kind of in that same sort of price range with guys like Karl-Anthony Towns, Kyle Kuzma, where I do think that this range is just going to be pretty interesting from a tournament perspective. So I would not mind being overweight on Şengün there. Also, he sees a usage rate go up to 31% with Eason and Brooks off the floor this year. So good numbers there for Şengün. Chubb kind of mentioned Cam Whitmore. I think that if you want to take a stab on a guy who, you don't necessarily feel all that great about minutes wise, I think it is Whitmore for me. I don't think this game blows out, but Whitmore's a guy who can get hot. He's had a lot of usage kind of in that second unit. We have him for about I have him for about 20 minutes in this spot, so I don't know where the RG projections have him at, but for Whitmore, if he's going to play 20 minutes, like he's not going to project all that great, but if he gets
18.
into 18, okay. So if he gets into a spot where, he's playing well, he's scoring well, or maybe, someone gets in foul trouble and he's able to play 24, 25 minutes, I think he might be one of the better value plays in the slate. I mean, this guy is a guy who 26.5, 27% usage rate with these with Easton and Brooks off the floor for this Houston team. So Whitmore's the guy that I like. I took his over on his points and rebounds prop. So he's the guy that I'm going to have some in large field. I won't go overboard because, again, he definitely has some uncertainties with the minutes there. But he's definitely a guy who I have my eyes on as a value play.
What is the over? Like 11 or 12? What's the number? I'm curious.
Yeah, 12.5. Okay,
yeah, I didn't think it'd be terribly high. Do you happen to know offhand fantasy points per minute? I know you dropped the usage on us, which was pretty appealing.
So far this year, he's been at 1.24 DK points per minute.
Okay, yeah. In lineup HQ, like it's very easy to access that, but for whatever reason, like rookies aren't in there. I don't know how that works dev wise, but we don't have the rookie like fantasy points per minute, so I have to go to Court IQ for that. World's smallest violin playing for me, but I have to pull that up. All right, let's knock out this last game. Chop Butto says, "What's up in chat? Are you going to give him your Field in the Plums play? Is that on layaway? We got to give that, of course, before Roth and the gang come in. The last game of the slate.
Yeah, we'll do that later on. Question from Aaron: Johnson or Towns on FanDuel for cash? Yeah, I don't know.
Jalen Johnson, I assume.
Yeah, you have to specify which Johnson, Aaron, but we'll see. Get back to me which Johnson. What are we doing? We're doing the last game.
It's probably Cat, unless if Murray's out, then it's probably Johnson. I think that's how that works. Is that fair to say, Kyle? But I think like as far as projection wise, Cat's got to be projecting more than Jalen. I think.
Yeah, I think it's Cat either way, honestly.
Okay, I think there's a little
FanDuel
vulnerability to like that.
Well,
Minnesota
FanDuel is a Cat just a center eligible on FanDuel? Because that could change some things, right?
That wouldn't make sense because then you wouldn't be shopping one of those two. He's got to be power forward.
I mean, he's got power forward and center.
Okay. Yeah, that makes a difference.
Let's knock out this last game. Minnesota. Why am I Minnesota? I'm pulling up. Okay. The Pelicans at Golden State, 234 is the total. The Pels are 2-point favorites at Golden State. Obviously, still no Draymond. Chris Paul is out for a month or so with his hand. Gary Payton got injured again, so he's gone. Some questionable stuff for New Orleans. The big one is Zion. Zion's questionable with his quad. Jose Alvarado's questionable. That one doesn't matter as much. But Chop, I'll throw this one to you. New Orleans and Golden State. I think this is the back half. No, this is the first game. This is an ABC game. It's interesting. The first game on ABC, second game on ESPN. I think this is an ABC game. New Orleans and Golden State. I don't love this game, and I don't think as of right now, ownership doesn't love it. Now if Zion doesn't go, Ingram would get elevated. McCollum would get elevated. They wouldn't be like smash plays, but they would improve. Where are you at, Chop, as far as New Orleans, Golden State? This one to me. Of course, tournaments, you certainly can roster some players here, but there's no obvious like cash game stuff here for me.
Yeah, I would say that nobody in this game projects for over probably 5% ownership for a reason. I don't like this game, even if Zion gets ruled out. I mean, I think Ingram and CJ are probably just fool's gold in this game. I don't like it. I don't like the Golden State side. Who's your best players? They're relatively healthy. Who's your best? Is Draymond back? Oh, he's coming back pretty soon. Not back yet, but they're relatively healthy. And what's going to happen? Who's Herb Jones going to guard tonight? Is they going to put him on Curry? I don't know. It's just a tough matchup for both sides, pretty much. And the ownership reflects that. I'm not too enthused about this game, so it's not one I'll be targeting.
You got anything, Kyle, to get us excited about Golden State, New Orleans? I guess the most interesting thing is if Zion doesn't play. Stuff is opened up, but nobody's playing Zion if he does play. I would just throw that out there too. And I don't know when we'll know that information because this is the last game of the night. Kyle, anything here to sell us when it comes to Golden State and New Orleans, or sort of wait and see mode on Zion? But as of right now, meh.
Honestly, I think the biggest selling point to anybody in this game is from a game theory aspect, just because you've talked about it a couple of times where all the games are locked or more than half locked at 7. All of them, other than one other, locked by 7:30. So we might not even have Zion news until after these games are locked. If that's the case, nobody's going to play Zion either way, but also nobody's going to get to Brandon Ingram or CJ McCollum if Zion gets ruled out after those games. So McCollum already projects pretty well for me. If you would, rule Zion out, he project even better. So McCollum's a guy that I think is pretty appealing here. Golden State ranks 21st in terms of defensive efficiency. So 20th in terms of points allowed. So McCollum makes some sense. I do think there are plays that I like a little bit more in that range, but from a game theory perspective, nobody's gonna be able to pivot to him after this news if Zion comes out after 7:30 or so.
Jeremy says Joval Warriors suck against centers. I would just say this game can go smaller, and there's like a chance that it could be a Nance game. But I would also say the chance for Joval to do things, it would be improved if Zion is out. I don't know. I think Nance is kind of sort of somewhat sneaky if you want to play that route. I don't know if you got a thought on that, Kyle. I see somebody in chat asking about Moody. That's way too ambitious for me. We're projecting 17 minutes for him. I don't see a path really, and he's not even like stone min. You have a thought as far as Joval? I'm not really in on it unless maybe Zion's out, but I think Nance. How cheap is Nance? Because he could be the interesting one.
He's 4-4 on DraftKings.
Yeah, and he's center and center only, which is annoying. But
I think there's just so many centers there. We did just get news that Levine and Vooch will not have any minutes restrictions today. But I think that there's so many centers on the slate. I wouldn't be surprised if we see Nance and Saric as like those teams' respective fives a lot tonight, though. Yeah,
that's sort of what I can see as well. Kyle Wesley wants to know Kuzma in a pace-up game, FanDuel cash. Can you trust Kyle Kuzma in cash tonight? If you ever can, it's probably tonight.
Yeah, what's that total at 254? I think you can make
pretty big.
Yeah, I think it's fine.
All right. If you guys have more questions, of course, crunch time coming in. They're coming in momentarily. You got Kevin Roth. You have Keith as well. I believe Taylor Smith will be popping up in just a second. Chop, I know it wasn't officially asked, but Butto was kind of implying he wants to know, and you were given an appropriate heads up. So you know it's coming. This is not your first show. Tell the people, Chopper, who is the feel it in your plums play of the night?
So many good ones tonight, man. This is tough. So I'll limit it down to one guy, and I'm going to roll out. I like that price drop on Albert Şengün. So I'm going Şengün, man. Fill it into the plums.
All right, Kyle. C. Şengün and Ray's Chop. What do you got?
Yeah, I'm gonna go with Naz Reid here. I think he maybe gets overlooked with some centers on the board. I think Okongwu's more popular. I think Jalen Smith is gonna have some ownership, and Naz Reid does have power forward and center eligible, so maybe he'll be a little bit more popular than I'm thinking. But I'm gonna go with Naz Reid. I like him a lot here.
Does Jalen Duren lose some ownership with Okongwu being a thing, or are people just gonna Okongwu plays a power forward, so Duren's still gonna get a fair bit? Is that not ambitious enough, Kyle? 17% is the current ownership on Duren. I want to be a little bit ambitious with the plums play. Is that fine? You're the official judge here.
Yeah, I think you might actually come in under that just with all the value at the center spot.
All right. What's that dude's name? Is that from Kenny Powers? Ashley Schaefer? Ashley, what's the guy's name, Chop? I know you're a big Kenny Powers guy that we're seeing on the screen right now, this GIF.
Yeah, Schaefer sounds about right. That sounds. I think that's it. I don't know. Maybe one of these crunch time guys knows better. But I actually watched it the first time around, and I actually rewatched it a couple years ago.
How is it?
It's great, man. What do you think? It's fantastic.
It still holds up, right? Is what you're saying?
Oh yeah, for sure. You know what? Some guys just have it, and Danny McBride has the it factor, and all of his stuff holds up, man.
Who do you think is most likely amongst Keith, Taylor, and Roth to have seen Eastbound and Down? Well, who's the chalk?
It's got to be Keith, man.
No, I don't think so. He's not a big TV guy. He's not a TV guy. He just watches the sports. He watches the sports, and that's
That's a sports show, man.
Maybe if he's going to watch one, it'll probably be Eastbound and Down. I think Roth has seen it. He's playing poker over there. He's got his poker face going. He's taking a sip of water of some sort. We're guessing that's water. We don't know. We'll have him tested after the show.
I think you boys are. I think you guys are probably going to go 0 for 3 on Eastbound and Down with this crew. If I had to guess.
Yeah.
Put it on the list, Roth. Did Chop not just sell it to you? Are you not curious now?
It's got to be better than freaking Reacher that I'm watching now. Jesus, that show sucks.
Why would you watch Reacher? You know it's going to be terrible.
Know. It's so mediocre. It's just like why am I subjecting myself to this?
You don't have to like commit to the full like 3 seasons, or whatever it is. You can abort whenever you want.
I don't know. I'm just like watching it again. I'm like, yep, this episode also sucked. Yeah, that's shocker.
He beats up a bunch of random dudes. He meets at a bar. Is that what happens?
It's like just good enough. It's like a Nickelback song. It's just good enough to like hit play, but it's not good enough to enjoy.
Taylor, are we sweeping the board? Is it open? Well, we need to officially get an answer from Keith. Eastbound and Down, yay or nay?
I have seen episodes of it, but I have not watched it front to back. No.
Okay.
But
yeah, I haven't either.
I enjoyed the episodes I did see.
Okay. But you're watching it like Pulp Fiction style? You're kind of jumping around from season to season?
I mean, this was years. This was like when it first came out. So it's been, 15 years or something since it came out, 10 years.
Fair enough.
So, yeah, it's been a really long time since I've seen it.
Chops on the rewatch. Maybe I'll give it a rewatch one of these days, but definitely worth exploring. All right, we have to yield because crunch time. FanDuel sponsor, crunch time's coming in now. We do appreciate y'all hanging out. Hit that like button. Do subscribe. Do turn on those notifications. Don't go anywhere because you got Taylor. You got Roth. You have Keith taking you home. Roth, take it away.
Good stuff. Welcome to it, ladies and gents. It is crunch time. I'm going to take you to lock. We're going to take you through lock, and we're going to answer your questions as well. So we got a lot going on. Joined by two of the sharpest minds in the biz, as always. We got Taylor in the house. What up, Taylor?
Not much. Feel like I haven't been on in a while, so happy to be back and ready to dive into a nice little 8-gamer.
Yeah, and there's some value. There's things happening, some moving, some shaking. So you feel good about this slate?
Yeah, we've gotten most of the news. Still waiting on Zion, but yeah, decent little slate here.
Very good. We got Ice as well. Keith Eyster, a.k.a. the Iceman. What up, Ice?
Not too much. Fun little slate here. Like you said, plenty of value out there. Good center stuff. Some big injuries, big stars out, and still waiting on a couple of things. So definitely a pretty good slate.
Well, I have been having more fun than anybody else because I have spent the last, 15 minutes just messing around with the brand new NBA Sim Labs tool. And it is just so fun. I highly recommend you check it out. The link right now is in the description on YouTube. You can't find it anywhere else. In fact, I searched all over RotoGrinders like an idiot trying to find it. This is the only spot that you can find it is in the description on this YouTube. For now, it is in beta. That is not going to last. I think Sunday is the last day of beta, and then it goes behind the paywall. Dean says, so that's why I couldn't find it. Yeah, it's hidden. It's hard to find. It's beta. You got to do a little bit of work since it's free right now, or at least making you search for it. I cannot recommend enough that you check it out and check it out now because it will not be free for long. Our new NBA Sim Labs tool. It is free. It's in beta. There's the link just posted in the chat as well. So mess around with that. Really cool tool. We are very, very excited about it. The official read here is that you can generate DFS lineups through the power of the simulations. It combines data from every aspect of the slate, churning out lineups that match your preferences. It only takes a few clicks, which is what I really like about it. You can have hundreds of well-built, correlated lineups ready to go for whatever contest type you're playing. You can set it to contest type, including NBA as of today. So try out the NBA Sims Lab for free while it's in beta using the link in our description. Note that all Combo and NFL Premium subscribers have access to the NFL Sim Labs tool as well. With that out of the way, let's just dive into the slate for those who like to do it the old-fashioned way, the Dave Potts do-it-by-hand style. Taylor, you want to run me through what we got here?
Yeah, so got some news in the last hour or so. Clint Capella, Rudy Gobert, both out tonight. That opens up value. Definitely cash viable value on both sites. Cody Martin out, Porzingis, Cade Cunningham, Tyrese Halliburton all out. Zion is questionable. DeAnthony Melton's questionable. Those are the two main things we're waiting on. The issue with Zion is that's the last game of the night at 8:30 Eastern, I think. So decent chance we won't have that news. Great opportunity in tournaments if you want to wait. But for cash, I think we have enough value to where that's not a huge deal.
Okay, well, why don't we jump right in? We'll start with FanDuel, the show sponsored by FanDuel, by the way. And we will kind of walk through a FanDuel cash build, and then I want to get Ice's tournament takes, of course.
Okay, so Philly is still without Embiid, possibly without Melton. We don't know yet. They're playing Atlanta, one of those awesome matchups that we love to pick on. Tyrese Maxey is $9K flat on FanDuel. easy cash play in a great matchup. Should see tons of usage with Embiid out for them. Trey Jones has been starting for the Spurs at point of late. He will start again tonight against the Pistons. There are a lot of high total games on this slate, many of which start right at 7. So we're going to be getting to a lot of early stuff. Trey Jones being one of them at 5-6 on FanDuel. Let's see, point guard Terry Rozier, better value on DK than FanDuel, but 9K flat, tons of usage for him with the Hornets missing several starters. They're playing Sacramento on a back-to-back. That's a great matchup for both teams. Rozier is very gettable in cash too on FanDuel. Melton, I'd be a little wary on. He's been out for a while. Don't really love that in cash if he's back tonight. Jaden Ivey's price came up a little bit after last night, but with Cade out, he should still see plenty of usage for them. TJ McConnell's price came way up without Halliburton. He's a great tournament play, I think, at these salaries, but probably not gettable in cash. I think we only had him at 23 minutes last I saw, presumably off the bench. Shooting guard Nick Smith is popping into a lot of lineups for Charlotte. He played 32 off the bench the other night with Cody Martin out. Martin's out again. He's 4,100. Not a guarantee to see that kind of playing time again, but they have made a point of getting him a little more involved of late. So I don't think that's a bad play in cash. Kevin Huerter, we saw start last night for the Kings after coming off the bench for a while. Still relatively cheap. A great matchup for them against Charlotte. Great cash play, I think, on both sides tonight again. Moving to forward, Miles Bridges, plenty of minutes for him with PJ Washington and Gordon Hayward out for the Hornets. Looks a little cheap for that role at 7-9 in FanDuel. Tobias Harris, again, another Sixer that should see more usage with Embiid out. Kyle Anderson is who we have projected to start with Gobert out for the Wolves. I'm quite reluctant to play him in tournaments at what may be 50-ish% ownership, but good cash play just because he should have a role even in the tough matchup against Boston. Jalen Johnson, I think, is more of a tournament guy too, just because he's priced up a bit. The cash staple here is that Onyeka Okongwu should start at center with Clint Capella out. They're playing Philly without Embiid, so not scared of the matchup. He's 5'6" on FanDuel, power forward center eligibility, which is huge. You're playing him, no questions asked, in cash. Karl Anthony Towns, not the worst play with Gobert out. He's 7,900, but I'm a little bit wary of getting to Minnesota. I think they're like double-digit dogs on the road against Boston on a back-to-back. They didn't arrive in Boston until today either, so could be some fatigue there. And then Paul Reed for 5.5 is a good center value for cash on FanDuel.
Where's our confidence in Reed at? Where's your confidence in Reed?
I have a lot of confidence. Not sure the Capella news impacts a lot, but he's cheap. Atlanta's a good matchup. He is a good per minute producer. The minutes haven't always been super safe, but that's cheap or I'm quite into that for sure.
Okay. All right. Well, let's bring in Ice, talk about some tournaments here. It seems like there are some clear chalky plays. Mentioned Okongwu, like I'm looking at his P-own 60%. There were a few other guys that are going to be jacked up here. How are you handling this tournament wise?
Yeah, so I think Taylor made an important point that everything is early here. We're probably going to get the DeJounte news before lock here, so not much to do with that. But Zion, I am extremely interested in building as if Zion is out. Nobody's playing CJ McCollum, Brandon Ingram, even getting to a little bit of Trey Murphy with my original build. If Zion ends up in, it's not like they're not fantastic plays or anything. It's just the upside that you get from building that way. And if the news breaks your way, I think those guys are going to be far less owned than they probably should be if we had that news before lock. So definitely building heavy with New Orleans. It's a great matchup against Golden State. They're a bottom 10 defensive team, and they've been even worse with Draymond Green out. So pretty good matchup for New Orleans. There's a lot of very obvious game environments, like matchups like Washington, Indy, Sacramento, Charlotte, even San Antonio, Detroit. Like all those are really good game environments. So it's leaving some of these other games lesser owned, like Minnesota, Boston. Nobody's playing that. And with Gobert out for Minnesota, yes, it raises the blowout risk, but I think it could also increase the pace of the game. Like these are two really good defensive teams, but when Minnesota is missing a defender like Gobert, I think it raises the upside for Boston. So Jason Tatum showing almost no ownership here, definitely a guy that I'm interested in being overweight on. As far as the chalk stuff goes, I think Okongwu is really good chalk. He has power forward eligibility as well, which is important since there are other strong plays at the center position. I'm not necessarily trying to get overweight on him, but if it's a necessary thing, I'm completely fine with that. He is the most comfortable of the chalk. Things like Trey Jones, Kyle Anderson, not nearly as comfortable, just lower per minute guys. Trey Jones has seen the minutes recently, but they've been reluctant to run him out there for mid 30s minutes at least. Since he's been in the starting lineup, he has seen over 30. So agree with the projection, just a little bit of fragility there. If he plays 28 in this spot, it wouldn't surprise me. Want to be underweight on Trey Jones. Same with Kyle Anderson, just so low per minute. We've seen him play 30 plus minutes and put up 15 fantasy points many a time. So definitely want to be underweight on guys like that. But Okongwu feels pretty safe to me. He's the most comfortable of the chalk. Paul Reed, and another one, like as long as he's starting, I think the mid 20s minutes are safe. Great matchup, fast paced game against Atlanta. And with Capella out, it's a little bit easier matchup for him as well.
Okay. Do you feel comfortable running through like position by position, or would you rather hold that until we get over to DK?
Yeah, we can go ahead and run through it here on FanDuel. We'll start at point guard. So I mentioned getting underweight on Trey Jones, I think is important. Nembhard is actually priced up. If you're looking for a pivot for Trey Jones, Nembhard I think is interesting. Not necessarily a huge upside guy either, but awesome matchup for him against Washington and showing about half the ownership of Trey Jones. TJ McConnell is priced way up. I think there's still upside for him to pay off that price tag in this matchup as well. Terry Rozier is an outstanding play. Maxey is as well. Both of them underpriced for their roles that they're going to have in this spot. Killian Hayes is priced up a ton here on FanDuel, but awesome matchup against San Antonio. He failed everybody as chalk yesterday. So I think you can go back to Killian Hayes in a great matchup. Not the most comfortable spot, but if you're looking for a pivot, another cheap one, I don't mind. At shooting guard, Nick Smith is interesting. I wish he wasn't getting as much ownership because I do think there's upside on the minutes. He also showed he wasn't afraid to shoot the ball, and Charlotte is just so shorthanded that I have interest in Nick Smith. I think there is upside there, but just I don't love that ownership number. I do have him in my build, not somebody I'm trying to be underweight on or anything, just because I do think there's potential he could play upwards of 30 minutes again in this spot. Definitely want to be underweight on a guy like Herter on this slate. I think there are better spots to save money. Mathurin is intriguing as an upside play in a great matchup. Bogdanovic, Atlanta Bogdanovic, that is, becomes a fantastic play if Derek and Chad is saying Jalen Smith is out. Is that?
Yeah, that's correct. That just came in.
All right, that is actually pretty interesting here. Isaiah Jackson is 4,600 power forward eligibility. I think he's gonna jump way up here in this spot. Toppin probably gets a nice Toppin, and Aaron Nesmith's minutes are going to be super safe. That's an awesome game environment, one of the best matchups on the slate. So I had some interest in playing Jalen Smith actually. Now I think you can save a little money, go down to Isaiah Jackson or even Obi Toppin.
Okay.
Sorry, I lost my place here. I think I had just about wrapped up shooting guard. Jaden Ivey, I think, has a lot of upside in this matchup against San Antonio. CJ McCollum, definitely a guy I want to be overweight on, just pending that Zion news. Moving on to some small forwards here. Mentioned trying to get underweight on guys like Kyle Anderson and Kevin Herter. Mathurin would be my preferred mid-range type play. Bogey becomes an awesome play, as I mentioned it. Shooting guard. I think you can play Bojan, Detroit Bogdanovic as well. Should be over 30 minutes in this spot. Awesome matchup for him against San Antonio. Kelly Oubre, we've seen pop off without Embiid in the past. He clearly needs to score. He needs to make his shots. But I think there is upside here, I guess, especially against a really fast-paced Atlanta team. Let's see if there's anybody else. Jalen Johnson is an interesting one. He's priced up, but he's been doing a little bit of everything. He's definitely in play as well. Power forward, I'm going to be overweight on Okongwu. the minutes are super safe without Capella. He's a good per minute guy. No Embiid on the other side. So great matchup for Okongwu. Towns is in a great spot as well. Really tough matchup against Boston. There is some blowout risk, but taking Gobert off the court definitely raises his upside. So Towns is a great play. Tobias Harris is a great play without Embiid. Domantas Sabonis, getting up to him. I mean, guy just absolutely smashed last night and has an even better matchup here tonight. So getting up to Sabonis is definitely something that I want to do. Brandon Ingram, another guy that I want to be well overweight on, despite him not jumping out in projections. Bump that up a little bit, get well over the field on him right now. Hopefully the Zion news breaks your way, and then it's a really good spot for him. Let's see if there's anybody else here. I don't mind Sadiq Bey. He's going to be out there for a ton of minutes. A little bit of a limited ceiling, but don't mind that if you're trying to save some money. Keegan Murray, another guy that I do like here. 6,400. Awesome matchup against Charlotte for him. And then the loaded center position, mentioned Okongwu. He has the power forward eligibility as well, so that helps you there. Paul Reed is a fantastic value play. Miles Turner, definitely somebody I want to be over the field on. This matchup with against Washington is one of the best rebounding matchup. And no Tyrese Halliburton means his usage is likely going up in this spot. Awesome spot for a Miles Turner ceiling game. Let's see. Nick Richards, I think, is playable. Like if you're looking for a pivot in the Paul Reed range, it's a little bit more expensive, but there is some upside there. Gets the bonus, so maybe some foul trouble risk, but there's some upside there. And then Naz Reid is definitely a guy I want to be way over the field on, showing just 1% ownership currently here on FanDuel, unless I need to refresh that. But that's very attractive. Like, we know he has a ton of upside. With Gobert out, there should be a path for him to play at least low 20s minutes with potential for like mid 20s. And then Şengün, if you're spending up, is another guy I always play for ceiling.
Okay. Very good. I did get a question here about Troy Brown. I think he's popping in lineup HQ. I saw him popping in actually some Sims Lab stuff as well. Sim Labs stuff as well. Any interest there?
I mean, I'm a little bit concerned that he's going to see a ton of minutes here. We only have him projected for 19. He's really cheap. So I really worry about the upside for tournaments.
Yeah. Okay. I mentioned the show, by the way, is sponsored by FanDuel. You bet $5 on FanDuel, you get $150 in bonus bets. This is for new users in Arizona, Colorado, Illinois, Indiana, Iowa, Kansas, Louisiana, Maryland, Massachusetts, Michigan, New Jersey, New York, Ohio, Pennsylvania, Tennessee, Virginia, West Virginia, and Wyoming. Shout out to the FanDuel Sportsbook for that fantastic offer. Terms and conditions apply. Must be 21 and up. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. Let's kick it over to DK and walk through a build here. I doubt it's all that different based on like how good some of these plays are, but maybe I'm wrong. Taylor, am I dumb?
No, it's a little different now because that Jalen Smith thing was unexpected. Like, he wasn't on the injury report. He was just ruled out randomly. And he was going to probably start for them tonight. Great matchup against Washington. So now Obi Toppin, like Keith was saying, and Isaiah Jackson are popping in optimals on DK. Jackson being 3.5 is quite attractive, center only, but with Okongwu being power forward eligible, it's a lot easier to get to Jackson at center if you want to punt. Toppin power forward center as well. So I think both of those guys are in the cash convo. Miles Turner is also in the cash convo. Andrew Nembhard is going to start in play or with Halliburton out over McConnell, and Neesmith should see a few more minutes. So Indiana was kind of crowded before. They still are. They still have a lot of guys that can run in there, but given the matchup, they have the highest total on the slate. It was like 130 last I saw, even without McConnell or without Halliburton. So going to be getting to a lot of Indiana. So yeah, Nembhard at 5.2. Very wary of playing him at ownership in tournaments, but in cash, we don't care about that kind of thing. Historically, he's been a lot better with Halliburton out of the lineup. So don't mind that for 5.2. Rozier and Maxey are staples of cash builds still. Rozier having shooting guard is pretty important. Maxey point guard only, but you can get to both pretty comfortably, especially with all this new Indiana value that we have. DeJounte Murray in, by the way. Just got that to come in. Bogdanovic is still fine. more of a tournament guy with Murray in, but I do think Bogdanovic for 6K flat. Bogdanovic is still cash viable, maybe more of a tournament thing though. TJ McConnell, even at 6'7", is still getting into some lineups, but off the bench, I don't think you need to do that in cash, especially with guys like Rozier and Maxey being priorities at guard spots. That pretty much covers it for the guard pool. You mentioned Troy Brown. I would avoid that if you can. He's not starting for Minnesota. Tobias Harris, great cash play, 6,900 on DK without Embiid. He's too cheap. They were playing Atlanta, great spot. Bojan Bogdanovic for the Pistons is playable. Sees more usage along with Jaden Ivey without Cade Cunningham. This is another good game environment in a toilet bowl against the Spurs. Kyle Anderson, like I said, on FanDuel, more of a cash play than a tournament play in my view. He's starting for Minnesota with Gobert out. Historically, a decent per minute guy, should see a minutes boost in the starting lineup in theory if they can keep the game competitive. I think Karl Anthony Towns is also fine in cash for the same reason on FanDuel. He's also 7-9 on DK. Neesmith maybe doesn't quite make the list, although like Keith said, his minutes should be pretty safe now with another forward out for the Pacers. And at center, Okongwu is a plug and play. He's 4,800. He's power forward center. No questions about him. And I mentioned Toppin, Isaiah Jackson, Miles Turner, and Towns, all center eligible, all squarely in play for cash. And, in cash, we don't care about negative correlation. So I have no problem with Toppin and Jackson together.
Okay, great. Well, that's kind of a good segue into tournaments here. Ice, when you're talking about all of a sudden these Pacers guys are somewhere we're leaning, are you worried about playing, say, those two guys together or too many in general?
Yeah, I haven't rerun a build yet to see just how many are popping in optimals. But I would limit it to 3. And as far as the Toppin Isaiah Jackson stuff, in tournaments, they're cheap enough where I think I'm okay with it. Like Jackson probably just covers the backup 5 minutes, and Toppin has upside for like 30 plus minutes in this spot. So I kind of feel like in the best matchup that we can ask for big men. So kind of feel like there's enough upside there. You can play them both together, even though there is some slight negative correlation there. But
well, the prices too,
such good values.
4-3 for Toppin and 3-5 for Jackson. Exactly. Like you don't need 40 points out of these guys.
Right. That's exactly right.
Yeah. Okay. Do you feel comfortable walking us through DK, or did you already basically just do that on FanDuel and that would be a waste of our time?
It just is a lot of the same names and a same strategy, just building heavy with Pelicans. Did see the Larry Nance question in cash. I'm okay with that. I prefer Trey Murphy if I'm trying to save money, assuming that we get Zion out news. He's 4,400, so he's in play. They just never run him out there for a ton of minutes. Like best case scenario, maybe you're getting 22 minutes, 24 maybe. So yeah, I mean, I think he's fine, but I don't have a ton of interest in just loading up on him. Like the values that we have at center are already just fantastic. Like Okongwu, I'd rather play Isaiah Jackson. As a pivot off of them, I don't mind it, but I just don't think he has the type of upside that those guys do.
Gotcha. Okay. That gives us 15 ridiculous minutes in order to kill some time here. Anything else you boys want to add before we dive into some QQs? And feel free to go on some tangents here as we answer some questions.
Yeah, I think the Indiana news is more impactful on DK for cash than it is on FanDuel. I reran, and Miles Turner is the one still popping into most optimals on FanDuel. Mathurin maybe a little more now, but yeah, it's a lot more impactful on DK, I think.
Yeah.
I am seeing some optimal lineups with 4 Pacers in it, so I would definitely limit that to 3 for tournaments.
And is there a run back on the other side of that game that you like?
Oh, that's never a comfortable question. Yeah, I mean, there always is. But the Washington is just a really hard team to play. If you have the money, it's Kuzma usually. Jordan Poole is always the uncomfortable guy, but there is theoretical upside there. Indiana is a great matchup as well. So like we always target Indiana games in fantasy for their game environment. So Being overweight on Kuzma, Poole, even Tyus Jones. Avdia is fine. I worry about the ceiling a little bit there. Koulibaly is fine. Kind of the same thing. Worried about the ceiling. But definitely would have some Jordan Poole and Kyle Kuzma.
Okay, great. Let's take some QQs. I'm going to start just very briefly in the RotoGrinders Discord. If you're not hanging out there, you should be. And then I'll get to the YouTube as well. Make sure you hit us with a little thumbs up, by the way. The show is free after all. All we ask is the thumbs up. Alex says, hey, are we okay with topping DK, GPP, and cash? The answer is yes to both of those. Yep. NBA DFS says, this is FanDuel cash. So Taylor, for you, cat herder or slow-mo hero?
Slight lean cat herder.
He says he could also go McCollum instead of hero if you like slow-mo McCollum more.
I do think McCollum is fine either way. Great play if Zion's out. Still fine if he's in. So if you prefer to wait on that news, I suppose it's not the worst idea.
Okay. Smoke and Jay says FanDuel GPP ice Sabonis or Wemby. And this brings me to a question I saw in the YouTube, which was, what about Wemby? What about Wemby? It's so weird. He's playing 24 minutes.
Exactly. They've come out and said they want to keep him around 24 minutes. So until that minutes restriction is lifted, I mean, the dude can put up fantasy points at a rate as good as anybody in the world. So he's in play. It's an awesome matchup. It's really tough because you're limited. Like, even if the game gets extended, I think like 28 would be an absolute hard cap, I think, on him. So he'd have to do it in limited time.
Yeah,
he can.
And Sabonis is also in like the nut matchup against the Hornets.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I think it's Sabonis if you're down to those two.
Yeah. Okay. FanDuel GPP, your favorite two studs ice in a large field GPP. This is a good question because we've really been focusing on all this value and all these cheap guys. What's it getting? Like, I just put Steph Curry in and I hated it. Like, what am I doing? There's got to be someone better than that to spend my money, right?
Sabonis is the guy. We just talked about him. This awesome matchup, just coming off of a triple-double. Like, dude's been playing incredible. Fox is struggling a little bit right now. So Sabonis is my favorite spend up. I do think Trae Young is going to go overlooked completely because DeJounte Murray is in, and I think he makes a ton of sense as a spend up. Philly's defense is obviously depleted without Joel Embiid. Then you're getting like the chalk guys. I think Maxey, Terry Rozier are great spend ups as well, but you're playing into some ownership there. A pivot to Sabonis and Trae Young are my favorites.
Nice. Okay. DK cash question. Taylor, which guy would you exclude from a cash lineup if you don't love either, Slow-Mo or J-Rich? Also, he says, if the answer is they both suck too much for cash, then please tell me that.
They don't suck too much for cash. Like Richardson should see minutes with Lowry and Butler out, running point in theory. I think Slow-Mo might be a little safer. We know he's starting and he's relatively cheap. So I would lean Slow-Mo. I don't think he's bad for cash.
Okay. D-Rock, DK, GPP, Ice, Melton or Monk?
Ooh, give me Monk there. The minutes are a little questionable, but I think the upside is better. Melton just coming back from injury.
Okay. From Chinatown, DK cash question. Last mid-spend, Tobias or Duren?
Was that cash?
It was DK cash, yep.
Tobias, but both are great.
Another DK cash question for you, Taylor. Slow-Mo and Miles Turner or Tobias and Toppin?
Slight lean, the first one.
Okay. Jumping into the YouTube chat right now. I'm scrolling up just a little bit. We'll go to Scott Davies' question. He says, FanDuel cash, Bridges and Jaquez or Tobias and Jalen Johnson?
I think the second one is better for cash.
Okay. DK GPP from Brian Marshall, Ice, Naw and Okongwu or Jovic and Trey Lyles?
Ooh, I like the Jovic play a lot. We saw him smash in the last game. There was some question on whether he was going to start. He did end up starting even with Highsmith back. Pulling up that he had a bunch of rebounds, and it's another phenomenal rebounding spot. 8 rebounds against Houston, who's a good rebounding team, and he gets the Thunder tonight, who are a terrible rebounding team. I don't love the upside on Trey Lyles, but if you're looking for a way to get away from some ownership, I really do like the second one.
Nice. Okay. FanDuel cash question for you from Darren in the YouTube chat. Taylor, Naw and Toppin or Jackson and Anderson?
Non-Toppin or Jackson and Anderson. I think non-Toppin might be a little safer.
Okay. Ice, any interest in Kevin Love as a pivot at center?
What is his price? He's been playing really well, and the minutes have been semi-secure. It was 61. What site was it?
He did not say.
Okay. 61 on FanDuel, 53 on, yeah, I mean, he's in play. He's so good per minute, and he's been playing 20 minutes regularly. He does have a 27 in there. Like I said, I think Highsmith was out that game. He is back, so should be good for low 20s minutes. Huge per minute guy. Don't love the price tag, but I think he can get there.
Personal lineup question. I don't know these two Indiana guys like Naismith and Nembhard. I don't know who is who and what is what. And they're kind of similarly priced with similar names. Which one of those two guys do I want more in my lineup?
In a tournament?
Nembhard, yeah, go ahead.
Tournament, I would say Naismith, just because I think Nembhard's going to be more popular, right?
Yeah, I agree with that. And I think Naismith's minutes ceiling is like huge in this spot. Like I think he could play over 30 in this spot without Jalen Smith. Nembhard is the ball handler. He's going to have the ball in his hands a lot more. Naismith is the guy who does a lot more, kind of a stocks guy. Will get some rebounds, a couple assists as well. So, I mean, he can get there in multiple ways. Nembhard probably has to put up a bunch of points or assists, which he can do, obviously, without Halliburton. He could also get run off the floor a little bit by TJ McConnell. So I definitely like Naismith for tournaments.
Okay, thank you. What else do we got? You guys like Malik Monk revenge narrative? Anybody on that revenge narrative?
I like him just because of the game environment.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We like him for other reasons. Yeah.
Fox has
we'll
been
go
kind
to
of struggling a little, and maybe he'll see a few more minutes, perhaps.
Okay. We'll go to Darren's question. We got about 6 minutes until we hit lock here. Turner or Towns on FanDuel?
Give me Turner there
for me.
Okay. Aaron says, DK cash question. Won't Nembhard and McConnell split minutes? This is kind of something you guys were just mentioning. And if so, isn't Jones a better play as a starter in DK cash?
I do like Jones and cash. Yeah. Sorry.
There is some risk to that. They have run them together. I believe I can try to pull that up quickly just to see how often they have done that. But like if there's only 48 minutes between the two of them, there's definitely risk. But I think they've run them together a little bit. I'll try to get that answer before lock for you guys.
Okay. Ice, I think you mentioned you like some of the Pels, or you were kind of waiting on that. Wendy in the YouTube chat says, what Pels do you like on DK?
So CJ McCollum, too many initials in mix. Let's see here. CJ McCollum, it would be my favorite. Brandon Ingram is a great play. And then I have some Trey Murphy as well. And I don't hate Larry Nance.
Okay. Very good. Someone pointing out that Cat Herder versus Slow-Mo Hero was a one, which if you actually look at the way that is spelled is a pretty wild question, as it turns out. Anyways, look, Cat Herder or Slow-Mo Hero. Hey, back into the Discord here. FanDuel single entry. Ice Ivy, Miles Bridges, or Harris Rozier?
I like the second one better. It is going to be more chalkier. So if you need to differentiate, the first one's fine, but the second one is stronger.
Okay. DKGPP, Ice, right back to you here. Jovic or Naismith?
I like them both a lot. Again, kind of the same thing. Like if you're looking for a way to differentiate, Jovic is a strong pivot, I think.
Okay. FanDuel cash question from NBA DFS, Herder or Kyle Anderson?
Anderson, I think.
Okay. Alex says, hey, can we get a little different? Little cheeky here by rostering Levine in a DKGPP. He is cheap, and the minutes restriction is off as well.
And back in the starting lineup, I believe I saw the alert for.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, he hasn't been great this year. It's not a good matchup, but yeah, I think that's a fine way to get different.
Yeah. Okay. DK Cash question here from Cuz. Taylor, you want Cat, Isaiah Jackson, or Obi and Duren?
They're both really good. I slightly lean toward the Duren one, but don't think you're doing it wrong either way.
I have the answer on Nemr and McConnell minutes together, 28 minutes together this season over 7 games. I assume that Halliburton was out in every one of those. So it is possible that they play a little bit together here.
Okay. Big Mel v. Ice, this is definitely a you question. FanDuel GPP's got 25 entries. Is 4 Isaiah Jackson entries too many out of those 25?
I assume that's because he's power forward. I think that's totally fine.
Okay. Hoosiers Hang Banner says, is it Pacifico Roth tonight? No, I'm off the sauce for New Year's. So no Pacifico, sadly. Anthony says, pick 2 of these gentlemen here. Ice, you want Cat, Maxey, or Rozier?
Rozier and Cat.
Okay. FanDuel Cash question, Ivy or Atlanta's Bogdanovich? We got about 2-3 minutes until lock.
I think Ivy has a higher ceiling and probably a higher floor, so easy call.
Okay. Ice, John is making you work for this one. He says, I got the util 5-7 or less on DK. Last man in, help me out. And he also yells, smash that like button, y'all. He's right. You should do that.
5-7 or less. I like Alec Burks at almost no ownership. Has a chance to see a ton of usage without Cade Cunningham. Trey Murphy is the guy. If Zion gets ruled out, I think you could see him play 28 minutes without Zion. If you saving a little money down to Naz Reid, if it helps you get up somewhere else, I'd be perfectly okay with that as well.
Okay. We got to do lightning round. We got about a minute until lock. I missed some questions in the Discord. Thoughts on Oubre and DK Cash? Does Melton coming back hurt him?
Yeah, I think Oubre would have been better without Melton. So
okay.
DK
not. Cash, Slow-Mo, Nemhart, or Bogdan and Nall?
Slow-Mo, Nemhart.
FanDuel Cash, Rozier, Tobias, Duren, or CJ, assuming no Zion, Kuz, and Cat?
What was the first one again?
It was Rozier, Tobias, Duren.
First one.
FanDuel GPP, Rozier looks mighty fine getting Sacramento on a back-to-back. Ice?
Yeah, totally agree. Awesome matchup.
Yep. Carolina guy says, Jovic good for a FanDuel GPP. I think you love him, right? I think you love that dude.
Yep, love it.
I feel like that's your feel it in the plums play of the day. Beaner says, your thoughts on Hero? Ice, you get any Hero?
I don't, just because I'm the CJ McCollum thing. They're similar price points, similar positions. So I'm well over the field on CJ McCollum. Did not get to Hero. Okay.
FanDuel GPP, Ice, Maxey or Rozier last piece. Those are like 2 of the best plays of the night.
They are. I prefer Rozier.
Okay. We got a last question, so we'll get that just after lock. Let's see what else we got. We're quickly approaching lock. Nick Smith or Kyle Anderson, DK GPP, Ice?
Nick Smith.
Okay. Can you rank Naismith, Mathurin, Hield? And Taylor, I'll let you do that.
I think that is the right order. Naismith, Mathurin, Hield.
Agree.
Okay. All right. We'll go to J Sam's question here. This will close us out. FanDuel single entries, Ice. In general, is tonight a night you feel better going for a balanced build? For example, I went a lot of cheap at center power forward with Reed, Okongwu, Jackson, and not a single player over 9K to finish out the rest of the lineup. Is that what everybody's doing? Is that too chalky?
It's not too chalky as long as you differentiate your lineup elsewhere, but that is the common construction tonight. Like spending up for Sabonis or Trae Young is different than living in like that 8K range with Maxey and Rozier. So I like getting overweight on those guys like Sabonis and Young that have huge ceilings because the ownership numbers look really good on them today.
Yeah. Okay. Perfect. That is a good way to close out the show. Make sure you hit us with a little thumbs up if you liked it. I know you liked it, so just hit us with the thumbs up. For Taylor, for Ice, for our wonderful production crew, always working hard behind the scenes. Guys, we appreciate you. We love you. And we will catch you tomorrow. You have been crushed.